Chapter 705. Junling Clubhouse was named after the piano goddess, Li Junling. Li Junling would play a piano piece here every week. If she had enough time, she would come here several nights in a row. She was the owner of this place and the queen of this clubhouse. This place could give her a greater sense of accomplishment. Li Junling set up an independent rest room in Junling Mastery. When she was tired of playing or tired of socializing, she would come here to take a nap. When Li Junling entered the electronic lock password on the door and pushed open the door of the restroom, the luxuriously decorated room was filled with a faint smell of tobacco. Li Junling didn't smoke, but she liked to smell this faint fragrance. She took a deep breath and said in a reproachful tone, "You're smoking again." A handsome man was sitting on a recliner by the window, holding the latest issue of Playboy magazine in his hand. Many blonde beauties on the cover were wearing fiery red bunny costumes. Their buttocks and breasts were big, and their breasts were swaying. It gave people a strong sense of visual impact. The man's eyes turned from the magazine and said with a gentle smile, "I said I wouldn't smoke here, but I couldn't help it." Li Junling took off her slender high-heeled shoes at the door and walked behind the man with her bare white feet. She reached out and stroked his handsome face. She said in a soft voice, "You know, I'm not really blaming you. It's hard for you to come here. If you want to smoke, smoke. I don't want to force you. Besides, I don't hate the smell of cigarettes, and I don't hate the cigarettes you smoke. You always indulge me. I can't control myself in the future." The man stroked the woman's small hand with one hand and said with a smile, "An unrestrained man is very dangerous. After a woman gets married, her identity will change. She is the husband's wife and the husband's mother. Women can't help but spoil their husband like a child. Men are also born with a strong sense of dependence on women's breasts." Li Junling put her chin on the man's head from behind and sniffed the shampoo fragrance in the man's hair. She said, "I think you're the cutest child in the world. I just can't help but spoil you. No wonder I always like to come here." Junling's words are nice and philosophical. Junling shouldn't be a pianist, but a philosopher. "I'm a musician." Li Junling gently rubbed his chin on the man's hair and said, "Every musician is an artist. Every artist has the opportunity to become a philosopher." It sounds like a philosopher is the final advancement. Most philosophers are lunatics. Li Junling said with a smile, "Only by entering a state of insanity can I see the world clearly and see the truth. I feel like I'm going crazy. Otherwise, how could I become your woman?" There was a silent smile on the man's face. With one hand holding the Playboy magazine and the other hand caressing Li Junling's delicate pink face, he said, "Do you feel wronged again? I heard that Qin Chang is also here today." "Yeah." Li Junling straightened his body and said with a smile, "He is my fiancé. Isn't it natural for him to visit me?" "That's to be expected." The man sighed softly and said, "The man of the general family cannot marry the woman of the Qin family, but he stole the woman of the man of the Qin family. Tell me, is this fate?" Li Junling sighed softly and said, "Of course Li Junling can't compare with the woman of the Qin family. Qin Etian also came just now. I've long heard of her name, and it's not the first time we've met. However, when she walked in, I still felt a strong sense of oppression. Maybe it's not just me. Everyone who sees her feels the same way. Have you experienced that kind of feeling? She's like an ancient queen. When she walks over, all the subjects have to bow or even kneel down. They don't even dare to breathe loudly. Even flattering words are really unnecessary. It's a kind of disrespect to her. Tell me, when did I, Li Junling, think about flattering others? Why is there such a big difference between people? Beautiful women were born proud." Li Junling could also be considered a dragon among men. In a certain small circle, she was also the object of admiration and flattery. For example, in her Junling club, she was fully deserving of being the most dazzling star. However, tonight, that Qin Etian just happened to come. Qin Etian's greatest ability was that no matter where she went, her powerful aura would turn that place into her home field. You stood in front of her like a lowly little servant. You only knew to speak when she spoke to you. You only dared to leave when she nodded in agreement. Which woman would like this kind of feeling? At least, Li Junling didn't like it. Even now, His heart was still unbearably uncomfortable. He had been humiliated, but he didn't know how to fight back because the other person didn't do anything. She didn't even look at him. Of course, not looking at him was another form of humiliation. An adopted daughter should be like Qin Tian. The man softly said the saying that resounded throughout Yinjing City. He said, an adopted daughter should be like Jiang Junling. Jiang Junling has disappeared into thin air. Because of this saying, he soared to the sky, and also because of this saying, he became a laughing stock. Perhaps it was because Qin Etian was a woman, and a very beautiful one at that. Therefore, everyone was particularly tolerant of her, and was willing to give her more convenience and care. Therefore, until now, everything she did was amazing, and every business she invested in could be called a miracle. After Jiang Junling's accident, some people also began to question whether Qin Etian's ability was worthy of this saying. The final result is well-deserved. Li Junling smiled and said, I think whether it is worthy or not, the key is to see whether you have a strong opponent. If Qin Etian's opponent was Fang Yan, what would the situation be like? Thinking about it, it is really an interesting idea. The man shook his head and said, impossible. We have evaluated Qin Etian's characteristics. She has a firm mind and strong willpower. Because she is quite intelligent, she has 100% confidence in her every word and deed, and it is difficult to change the decision she has made. Even her mother, who is known as the Demon Emperor, can do nothing about it. Moreover, because of that incident, she is full of trust and dependence on Fang Yan. No one thought that the hastily ended kidnapping incident would make Fang Yan who he is today. If that incident had been successful, or if she had simply killed the hostage, would there still be a mess that we need to clean up today? Why did Fang Yan rise so fast? That is because Lu Chaoga is behind him, Chaoyan Technology. Why can Chaoyan Technology develop so fast and remain independent? That is because of Qin Etian and the support of the Qin family. Without Qin Etian, whether Fang Yan and Lu Chaoga could keep Chaoyan Technology is really unknown. Which Boston creeper doesn't need a hard fence to support it? Li Junling walked to the man's legs and squatted down. She reached out and stroked his crotch. She looked up with a charming smile and said, You have a reaction? Is this kind of book that good? The man closed the magazine in his hand and said, Of course not as good as you. So the woman unzipped the man's pants, squatted on the ground and began to work. No one would have thought that the goddess of piano, who was respected and worshipped by millions, would be willing to serve the man she loved in such a manner. Our Li family also relies on the Jiang family. If it wasn't like this, Li Junling raised her head during a break in her work, looked at the man and said, I would have been swallowed by someone else a long time ago, right? Fang Yan and Lu Chaoga chose the Qin family as a partner. That was the smartest choice, because only the Qin family could resist the Jiang family's offensive, unless the Jiang family was willing to go to all-out war with the Qin family. But at that time, the Jiang family shouldn't have made such preparations, right? Killing 1,000 enemies, losing 800 of your own men. Why let those irrelevant people take advantage of it? The man's whole body lay comfortably on the leather sofa, closed his eyes and enjoyed this high standard of courtesy. He had a calm smile on his face and said, The big tail is not left alive. Now that the Jiang family feels threatened, they want to cut off this unlikable tail. Is this enough? Li Junling began to mutter, and said, Is it just to stir up trouble in the middle? A camel's endurance is super strong, but it's always the last straw that breaks the camel's back. Qin Etian is very smart, and Qin Etian is very powerful, but Qin Etian is a woman in the end. The Qin family's old man hasn't thought of letting her take the helm yet. After all, Qin Etian's parents and uncles are still alive. And her mother is a woman who is harder to provoke than she is. But the Qin family's economic power has fallen into the hands of a woman for 2 generations, which has already caused dissatisfaction among the Qin family's men. This is also the reason why Qin Chang came out tonight to add fuel to the fire. Qin Etian is a mistress. We just released this news, and then the Qin family immediately jumped out to cooperate with us. Tell me, who is Qin Etian's real opponent? We can only be regarded as Qin Etian's potential opponents. The Qin family who has the most direct conflict of interest with her are her real opponents. Qin Chang came out tonight, How many Qin family members will come out tomorrow? Qin Chong has been insulted like this. I'm afraid that Qin Etian will go through another trial, right? The Qin family's rift is getting more and more serious, and the Qin family's old man has to re-examine. When the woman's tongue touched his sensitive part, the man softly moaned, and then he suppressed this irrepressible pleasure and said, "Woman, isn't this good?" He was evaluating Li Junling, but also seemed to be evaluating Qin Etian. Chapter 706. After a fierce emotional release, the woman helped clean up the battlefield, and the man closed his eyes to take a nap. When he opened his eyes were shining. This torment did not absorb too much of his essence. Instead, it made him more energetic. He reached out and held the disheveled woman in his arms. Looking at her pink face close to him, he said, "Am I too selfish?" "I don't think so." The woman said, "I like you, so I'm willing to do anything for you. You weren't outside just now, so you didn't hear Qin Etian's confession to Fang Yan. To be honest, I was moved by her. Because I like someone, I have to bear the name of a mistress. But even so, is it enough to make me not like him anymore? Impossible." I like the words she used. Love doesn't start, but it goes deep. Love doesn't start, but it goes deep, the man whispered and said in a deep voice. Did Qin Etian really say that? Did you really say that? Li Junling nodded with great certainty and said, in front of so many people heard it. I really didn't expect that a woman like her could not find any man. Why did she let herself fall into the mire? That's why it proves that Fang Yan is too dangerous. The man's voice was a little firm as he said, It's too dangerous. I don't see it at all, Li Junling said. I often heard you mention him before. I thought he must be a very great person. Today I accidentally bumped into him at the door of the club. Do you know what he was doing? He was joking with the greeter at the door. He looked like a rascal. At that time, I had such a thought. How could such a guy be qualified to be your opponent? However, he has become your opponent and has given you such a headache. That's what's special about him, the man said with a wry smile. Those people who look powerful at first glance, will you be particularly careful when you see them? Of course, Li Junling said without hesitation. Would you be willing to be friends with those guys who look particularly smart and slick? Yes, I would. After all, it's quite comfortable to get along with such people. However, I would be more or less on guard. Yes. So, when you meet a man like Fang Yan, do you feel a sense of kinship? Lying in the man's arms, Li Junling thought about it seriously and said, That's true. That's why he's so terrifying. The man said, whether it's Lu Shu of Huaqing, Lanshan Valley, or Jiang Zhulu of the Jiang family that he single-handedly destroyed, including my insufferably arrogant younger brother, General Ling, tell me, which one of them isn't an outstanding talent? Which one of them wasn't vicious and merciless? One look and you could tell that they were big shots? What was the result? One by one, they were either defeated by him, subdued by him, or beaten into submission by him. Dogs that bark don't bite. You have to remember this forever. Li Junling placed his hands on the man's broad chest and asked, What about you? What kind of man are you? Me. The man's big hand reached into the depths of the woman's clothes, feeling the softness that brought him supreme enjoyment. He smiled and said, If there's wine today, let's get drunk today. If there's a grudge tomorrow, let's take revenge tomorrow. This was perfunctory and also a way to change the topic. This was the magic weapon that men would use when faced with questions that they didn't want to answer. The woman sighed secretly. In the end, she still couldn't walk into the depths of this man's heart. At least not yet. When Qin Chong returned home, his father was lying on the desk writing. Qin Chong's father, Qin Lingnan, was a famous economist in the country. He was not in charge of the Qin family's business affairs, but he was in charge of the country's economic affairs every day. It was also because of this that he had a very high reputation in the political circle and among the people. He was the leader of the academic faction in the Qin family. For a giant family like the Qin family, some people were in business, some were in politics, and some were in academia. This was the reason why the family could grow bigger and have a deeper foundation. Qin Chong knocked on the door, stood at the door and said, Dad, you haven't rested yet? I'm writing a manuscript. Qin Lingnan looked up at his son and continued to busy himself with the things at hand. This kind of thing can be handled by the secretary. Why do you need to do it yourself? Your waist hasn't been well recently, so pay attention to rest. It's not easy to find a ghostwriter for an article to be published in the Wall Street Post. Seeing that his son was in the mood for a long chat, Qin Lingnan stopped writing. He picked up a cigarette from the cigarette box beside him and lit it. After taking a deep puff, he looked at his son and asked, "What's the matter?" "I ran into Fang Yan tonight," Qin Chong said. Qin Lingnan raised his brows slightly and said, "There was a conflict?" Other than Qin Etian, his student, Fang Yan had almost never met any of the important figures in the Qin family. However, as long as they were ranked in the Qin family, they would have a deep understanding of Fang Yan. His information was on everyone's desk, and everyone was making various interpretations of him. Qin Lingnan was no exception. Although he did not care about the Qin family's business affairs, he had some understanding of some of the key partners. The popularity of Chaoyan technology and the vigorous development of renewable energy were closely related to his vigorous advocacy behind the scenes. The ancients paid attention to before the troops and horses move, the provisions and fodder move first. In the commercial war of modern society, it was extremely necessary to take a breather and observe the reactions of the surrounding people before making a move. He has a bad temper. He hurt the third son of Minister Lu's family, Qin Chong said with a smile. Lu Haoran is still in the hospital now. The Lu family has already rushed over. I'll explain it to them and come back. I'm afraid it's not easy. Okay. Qin Lingnan did not care about his daughter's quarrel. Every day, he paid attention to national affairs and the world's economic situation. He really did not care about who slapped who or who quarreled with who. That's not the main purpose of your visit, right? Etienne is also there, Qin Chong said. Oh. Qin Lingnan's expression froze slightly. He was still very concerned about the girl and his family. He could not help but pay attention to her. Whether it was the outside world or the Qin family, they were all shrouded in her brilliance. Not only was she beautiful, but her various legends, her investment foresight, and the fact that she had already predicted Chao Yan's great potential when she was still a student. She pulled strings between them and made his mother vote for Lu Chaoga. In Qin Lingnan's generation, the most outstanding person in the Qin family was Qin Etienne's mother. Until now, the Qin family's economic power was still controlled by that woman. In Qin Etienne's generation, Qin Etienne had inherited all of his mother's strengths. Perhaps, he might also inherit the giant commercial ship that was controlled by his mother. Although he was still young, who knew if this would be the case in the future? At least, Qin Lingnan had already seen the stubborn attitude of the old guys in his family towards Qin Etienne. What did she say? Qin Lingnan asked. I had a dispute with Fang Yan because I wanted to use this opportunity to clear Etienne's name and wash away the dirty water that was poured on us. I wanted Fang Yan to admit in front of everyone that he and Etienne did not have that kind of relationship. However, Etienne's performance was very difficult to accept. Qin Lingnan pressed the cigarette butt in his hand into the ashtray and waited seriously for his son to continue talking about what happened next. Qin Etienne admitted her feelings for Fang Yan in front of everyone, and was even willing to bear the blame of being a mistress. Qin Chong repeated what happened at that time. He did not deliberately add oil to the fire because the truth itself was enough to make people angry. Sure enough, after listening to Qin Chong's narration, Qin Lingnan's expression became ugly and he shouted angrily, Nonsense! Does Qin Etienne still want her face? She is shameless. But does our Qin family still want our face? Qin Chong knew that his father would definitely have an intense reaction because he was a cultured person, and cultured people cared the most about their reputation and the image of their family. Qin Etienne said that she is willing to be a mistress? If she is willing to be someone else's mistress, then she should get out of the Qin family. There are so many girls in the Qin family. Which one of them is as shameless as her? How can she say something like that? Dad, don't be agitated. Qin Chong was happy in his heart, but he pretended to be anxious. He quickly comforted and said, Qin Etienne is in the second master's family. Whether she is good or bad, we can't control it. Can't control it? Why should I? Qin Lingnan took a big sip of tea and said, Many people heard what she said? Yes, many people heard it, Qin Chang replied. Other than witnesses, is there any physical evidence? Yes. Qin Chang said. It happened at Junling Clubhouse. If I ask Junling for the surveillance video, she will definitely show it to me. Li Junling? Is she also involved in this matter? Qin Lingnan stared at his son in confusion and asked. It's like this. Fang Yan happened to have an appointment with 2 small stars at Junling Clubhouse. I happened to go to Junling Clubhouse to see Fang Yan. Juntai took me to see Fang Yan. At that time, I only knew that Fang Yan had arrived in Yanjing, Qin Chang said. Qin Lingnan frowned and tried hard to think about the relationship between the people in the middle. He said, Is Li Junling okay? Dad, so what if she is okay? So what if there's no problem? Qin Chang smiled and said, Even if she intentionally led me to see Fang Yan, so what? What she wants us to do is what we need to do. If what happened tonight is spread out, I'm afraid the other families will be very uncomfortable, right? For the sake of Qin Etienne's dignity and the reputation of the Qin family, I kindly persuaded her, but in the end, I was humiliated. Isn't this crack getting bigger and bigger? Isn't it also beneficial for us to tear open a crack? How can the men of the Qin family always be suppressed by a woman? Qin Lingnan glanced at his son and said, Give me the video of Etienne saying those words. I want to let the elders of the Qin family see if the heir they chose knows how to write the word shame. Chapter 707. They kept drinking, and the atmosphere was not harmonious. Since Qin Etienne joined them, Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin tried their best to maintain a happy and peaceful space, but they failed because of Fang Yan's uncooperation and Qin Etienne's queen nature. Fang Yan was silent because he hadn't come out from what Qin Etienne said in front of everyone just now. He knew very well what it meant for a girl to say those words and do such a thing. And when that girl was Qin Etienne, it was even more difficult. How could a family like the Qin family allow a girl to say such words of love even if she was scolded as a mistress? For them, it was a disgrace to the family's reputation. How could Fang Yan enjoy the beauty's kindness? Was it the best way to repay the kindness by being a playboy with 2 beauties on both sides? Moreover, Yi Ro and Qin Etienne were both very unique. One was as hot as fire, and the other was as cold as ice. If they collided with each other, it would be like Mars colliding with Earth. Qin Etienne had been talking all the time. She not only answered Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin's questions, but also took the initiative to find some common topics. However, it was very strange that Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin just couldn't be intimate with her. They talked more and more, but the relationship between them didn't get closer, and the atmosphere didn't get warmer. Instead, it became a little awkward. Once everyone stopped talking, it was really difficult for someone to say something. Thus, everyone could only drink 1 glass after another. There was another pianist playing on the stage. Of course, there was no way to compare with Li Junling's foundation, but he who had the opportunity to go on the stage was not bad. What he played was Starry Sky. The vast night sky was presented to everyone by him. Everyone was like an astronaut traveling in space. It had to be said that music was really magical. Although Li Junling had left, he ordered the waiter to send 2 bottles of Fire Snake. The 2 bottles of Flame Snake were quickly emptied. Although Jiang Qin was reluctant, he still said with a smile, Mr. Fang, have you been in Yanjing recently? He should be in Yanjing these few days, Fang Yan said. He still had a lot of things to take care of, so he couldn't leave for a while. If Mr. Fang is in Yanjing, let's find another time to meet? Jiang Qin said. It's too late today. Yuan Lin and I have to go back to rest. We have to attend an activity early tomorrow morning. Fang Yan nodded and said, You 2 go back and rest. Let's get together again when we have time. Yuan Lin was a little drunk. She stood up and walked to Fang Yan saying, Mr. Fang. Yuan Lin, are you all right? I'm fine. Yuan Lin's body shook and she said, Mr. Fang, we are no longer children. Don't treat us as children anymore. Yuan Lin still wanted to say something, but she was pulled away by Jiang Qin. Fang Yan asked if he needed to send them back. Jiang Qin said that the driver and the assistant were waiting outside, and someone would send them home. After the two girls left, there were only Fang Yan and Qin Yitian in the box. Fang Yan opened a bottle of mineral water and handed it to Qin Yitian, saying, "Drink some water." Qin Yitian accepted the bottle of water and took small sips. She lay on the sofa, her starry eyes staring unblinkingly at Fang Yan. There was a look of joy on her face, as if they had just met for the first time. Her posture was so lazy that she looked like a lazy cat. Fang Yan opened the bottle of mineral water and gulped it down. After drinking all night, he was really thirsty. After drinking a bottle of water, when Fang Yan turned around, he found that Qin Yitian was still looking at him with the same posture and the same smile. Fang Yan sighed softly and said with blame, "You shouldn't have said those words. You are such a smart person. Why didn't you think of the consequences?" "Then what should I have said?" Qin Yitian asked in reply, still smiling. "Say that I have nothing to do with Mr. Fang. I don't like him at all. Say that we are not lovers now, and we will not be lovers in the future." Qin Yitian waved his hand and said, I know. You want to say that you are moved, but you can't accept me because you already have Yiro. You already have a girlfriend. I know that even if you don't say it. I am such a smart person. How can I think of what you want to say? I am afraid of bringing you trouble, Fang Yan said. Qin Yitian sat up straight and looked at Fang Yan saying, "If there is no such trouble, there will be that kind of trouble. Because I am a woman. Who asked me to be such an outstanding woman? They want to drive me out and trample on me. I don't want to do what they want, but I don't want to let them succeed. In this way, there will always be contradictions, won't there? You want to use a woman's feelings as a point of attack to drag me down. Don't you feel ashamed? If the men of the Qin family are only so capable, I really can't hand over the things in my hands so easily. If they can't protect it, I will protect it." Qin Yitian held his chin with one hand and looked at Fang Yan seriously, saying, "Do you remember what I said to you before?" "What?" Fang Yan asked. Qin Yitian had said countless words to him, but he really didn't know which one he was asking. "I will be very angry when I see someone bullying you. If anyone hurts you, I will skin him, no matter who he is." Qin Yitian stood up straight and went forward to hold Fang Yan's head, letting him lean on his lower abdomen, and said, "I don't want the wind to hurt your eyes. I don't want the snow to fall on your shoulders. I don't want anyone to touch a hair on you. No one. I am Qin Yitian. If someone bullies me, countless people will stand up to protect me. But what about you? If someone bullies you, then let me stand up to protect you. I know you are very tired, and I know you don't like these plots and schemes. If you want, let me shelter you from the wind and rain. You are too tired. Have a good sleep." Fang Yan smiled bitterly, and then there was a scalding warmth flowing through his body. He only thought that it was a child's joke from several years ago. He didn't expect that she would remember the words of that snow, including every punctuation. Qin Yitian's lower abdomen was very soft, but it also gave people a sense of security. Fang Yan, who alone supported the Fang clan and struggled with all kinds of forces, couldn't refuse this kind of protection, and couldn't refuse this kind of gentleness. He was really tired, very, very tired. Fang Yan closed his eyes and quickly fell asleep. The Qin clan's old residence wasn't old at all. Instead, it was on the most beautiful mountain in Yanjing City, Fragrant Mountain. They bought land and built a mansion that covered dozens of acres. The house was European style, like an ancient castle in Europe. The vegetation was dense, and there were all kinds of rare flowers and plants. The lawn was wide, and every day, the young people of the Qin clan were responsible for cutting the grass. Even Qin Yitian, a busy person, was no exception. When it was her turn to cut the grass, no matter how busy she was, she had to go home to do this voluntary work. There was a golf course inside the Qin clan, which was connected to the inner stream of Fragrant Mountain. If you played golf in autumn, the mountains and fields would be covered with red maple leaves. It was secondary to play hard and enjoy the beautiful scenery of Fragrant Mountain and the Qin clan's self-brewed white wine. The Qin clan paid attention to being open and aboveboard, and there was nothing that they couldn't tell others. Therefore, their family style was to make money generously and spend generously. They didn't hide their wealth in the deep mountains, nor did they live in a small shabby house to show off. They liked to enjoy themselves, and they also had the courage to show everything they had in front of others. They weren't afraid of jealousy, and they had the ability to resist all opponents. Their way of doing things was very popular, and even some influential people in Yanjing would come over to drink tea and play a few rounds of golf with the Qin clan's old master when they had nothing to do. The Qin clan in Yanjing was also an ancient family that had been standing for thousands of years. It was said that they were the descendants of a general surnamed Qin in the Qin dynasty. However, their history was too long, and they had been passed down for countless generations. Except for the Qin clan's own people, it was difficult for outsiders to say for sure. Because of the need to cut the grass, Qin Etienne often went back to the old house. However, today he was called back by his grandfather. His grandfather's attitude when he called was very kind. He said with a smile, "My dear granddaughter, Grandpa wants to drink tea. Come back and make a cup of tea for Grandpa." Therefore, Qin Etienne came back to make tea. Qin Etienne was indeed making tea. In her Grandpa Qin Dongyang's luxurious tea room, Qin Etienne sat in front of the tea table in her snow-white robe. She warmed the teapot, prepared the tea, brewed the tea, poured the tea, and served the tea. Her robe was wide and her movements were smooth. Several old people held the teacups and drank tea. Qin Lingnan, the second uncle of the great-grandpa's family, stood beside them. He looked down and pretended that he was invisible. Before Qin Etienne came back, he had said all that he needed to say and done all that he needed to do. As for how to decide, it was up to these old people. Qin Chong stood outside the tea room. He was not qualified to sit here and drink tea with the old people around the tea table. With a gentle smile on his face, he seemed to enjoy such a family gathering. After Qin Etienne distributed the tea to the 3 grandfathers and 2 sisters, he knelt there and poured a cup of tea for himself. He tasted the tea and found that it tasted good. It was his usual level. However, the water used was fragrant mountain spring water that had been stored for a day. When he drank it, there was a rusty smell. If it was freshly fished, the taste would be sweeter and more delicious. Qin Etienne's grandfather, Qin Dongyang, closed his eyes and took a sip, letting the warm tea flow down his throat and into his lungs. His lips and teeth were filled with the tea perfume and sweetness of the water. He asked, "How is it?" "Good tea." Qin Shouwen was the first to respond. "The water is good, the tea is good, and the tea maker is even better," said Qin Yunlan, the eldest of the siblings. "Etienne's tea-making skills are getting better and better. We just need to drink it. Why do we need to taste it? What do we need to judge?" Qin Shifeng looked a little impatient. Qin Dongyang nodded and looked at his granddaughter sitting opposite him. He said with a smile, "Etienne, you've drunk the tea. Go back and rest." Qin Etienne stood up, bowed slightly to the old people, and then turned to leave. From beginning to end, she didn't look at Qin Lingnan and Qin Chong. Chapter 708. Since the tea master had left, the people drinking tea should have left as well. However, other than Qin Etienne, no one else in the tea room had left. Qin Dongyang held the teacup and said with a smile, "This tea is still edible, which proves that Etienne has put in a lot of effort all these years. I also tried to persuade her. She's a girl, why waste her time on these trivial things all day? Girls at her age should be studying, shopping, and dating. She should have fun for a few years, and her youth will be gone forever. When she's at our age, she'll be a joke if she studies and dates again. Etienne is stubborn and doesn't listen." Qin Yunlong glanced at Qin Lingnan and said in a displeased tone, "Although Etienne is a girl, she's a great talent in our Qin family. What's wrong with a girl doing these things? Why can't some people like her? It's not like we don't give you a chance. Doesn't the Qin family have a startup fund? As long as you have a project, as long as you have creativity, everyone has a chance to prove their ability. People who are always jealous of other people's achievements, but are unwilling to work hard themselves, are always thinking of ways to drag others down, and drag those who are ahead of them down to their level. Such people are wicked. Everyone wants to do this. Is the Qin family still the Qin family? Can the Qin family still be where it is today? It would have been swallowed by others long ago. Perhaps it was because they were both women, But Qin Yunlan was especially fond of her granddaughter. She raised her voice and said, I'm going to say this first. I don't care about fair competition, and I don't care about it. On the contrary, I'm happy to see it happen. However, if someone wants to harm Etienne and uses some underhanded means, I won't forgive him if I find out. The others lowered their heads and drank their tea. They had no intention of standing up to take sides. They all knew that this involved the power struggle between the eldest and second families. It was actually a struggle to give the economic power of the Qin family to the man or the woman. Some people supported taking back the power and handing it to the outstanding second generation. After all, it wasn't the same thing to let a woman with another surname control the Qin family's economic power. Some people supported Qin Shouwing's faction, but now that Qin Dongyang's faction clearly had the upper hand, it was not convenient for them to support him at this time. Everyone had their own thoughts, so no one spoke again. It was so quiet in the tea room that one could hear a pin drop. After a long while, Qin Shouwing put down the teacup in his hand and praised, That girl Etienne is really good at making good tea. It looks pleasing to the eye, and leaves a pleasant fragrance in the mouth. It's just that Dongyang is too stingy. Etienne's granddaughter only made 1 cup of tea for us before he hurriedly chased us away. Otherwise, I would have liked to drink a few more cups. However, Etienne's tea ceremony skills are far inferior to our children. By saying so, Qin Shouwing had already admitted his mistake to Qin Dongyang. With a gentle smile on his face, Qin Dongyang looked at his elder brother and said, Everyone has their own specialties. He writes Qin opera well, and is proficient in music. Even his fiancée is a piano master. In this area, the heavenly sword cannot compare. Qin Shouwing laughed and waved his hand. I've discovered that there is nothing in this world that Qin Etienne cannot do, as long as she is willing to learn. Everyone roared with laughter. Qin Shouwing stood up and said, I'm tired. Let's go. Whose turn will it be to weed tomorrow? Qin Chang doesn't have anything to do tomorrow, so he can do it for her. He's too young. We need to let him exercise more. It's Qin Hongying. Qin Shifeng said, That girl likes to sleep late. If she knows that someone is helping her weed, she will be very happy. Qin Chang walked over and said to the old man, Third Grandpa, please tell Sister Hongying that I will help her weed early tomorrow morning. Let her have a good rest. Yes. Qin Shifeng looked at Qin Chang thoughtfully and said, Men should be open-minded. The more open-minded they are, the bigger their heart will be. With a big heart, the wider the world you see will be. Only then can you achieve extraordinary things. Qin Chang bowed deeply and said, Thank you for your guidance, Third Grandpa. I know I was wrong. Qin Shifeng grinned and pointed at Qin Chang. This kid is quite sly. He is quite active in admitting his mistakes. Everyone laughed again, and the tea party ended. Qin Shouwing returned to his room. His son, Qin Lingling, and grandson, Qin Chang, followed him in. Qin Shouwing sat on a chair, while Qin Chang hurried to pour tea and get snacks for his grandfather. Qin Shouwing took the teacup that Qin Chang handed over. He didn't take a sip. Instead, he looked at Qin Chang and said, Do you know why I didn't reprimand you just now? Because Grandpa was protecting my pride. Qin Chang said with a face full of guilt. Bullshit. Qin Shouwing squeezed out a very unrefined word from the corner of his mouth. Protect your pride? What pride do you have that's worth me protecting? I just feel too embarrassed and can't stand up and say it. Isn't that embarrassing? Qin Chang, aren't you ashamed? Qin Chang's face turned red. He was so embarrassed by his grandfather's mockery that he couldn't speak. I know that you men want to fight for power and snatch a piece of the cake. Fight, snatch, I'm happy. What kind of man are you if you don't wield power and play with women? It's not just me. Do the others not have the same thoughts? Why does our Qin family's business need a woman with another surname to control it? Are the men of our Qin family *T? Are none of the men of our Qin family presentable? But can you not be so shabby in what you're doing? Can you not say that? How can that word be used? Yes, loser. Do you know how loser your way of doing things is? Using a woman's reputation to say something. Whether it's true or not, you've already lost. You've lost so badly that you've even lost your underwear. You've done such a thing? How can other people support you? Who has the nerve to stand up and say that what you've done is right? We're all so old. Are we going to point at a teenage girl and say that she's a mistress and has no shame? How can we say such things? If we were to follow you and get involved in this kind of thing, wouldn't we be disrespecting our elders? Grandpa, I know I'm wrong. Qin Chong wanted to find a hole to hide in. But we didn't let that thing out. No matter who let it out, it doesn't matter. Qin Showing said resentfully. Someone set the bait to see who the stupid fish was. In the end, my son and grandson became the two most stupid fish. Thinking of this, my old face is burning with pain. I didn't get laughed at by them, but by the two of you. Qin Lingling stood at the side, feeling too ashamed to show his face. Although his father didn't scold him by name, most of the blame fell on his son. However, he was already so old. Yet he followed his son to do such a thing. It was really stupid. After talking for a long time, Qin Chong finally raised his teacup and took a big sip of fragrant tea. He waved his hand and said, "Go. You two can go back. It's late, so have a good rest. Qin Chong, get up early tomorrow. Remember to eradicate the weeds in the garden. I should also give you a little punishment, so that you'll remember this forever. Sometimes the more fragrant the bait is, the bigger the trap." Qin Chong nodded and said, "Grandpa, I'll remember what happened today." Qin Lingling also said, "Dad, you should rest early. Go back, all of you." The old man waved his hand and said. When Qin Etian returned to his room, the light in the room was on. An elegant and gentle woman in a purple nightgown was sitting in front of the floor-to-ceiling window reading a book. It was a book Qin Etian was reading titled The Little Prince. She had read it several times before. Because she liked the story inside, she would review it when she had nothing to do. Qin Etian walked to the woman and sat down. He asked with a smile, "How many times is this?" "The 4th time," the woman said. "I've read it for the 5th time," Qin Etian said proudly. "But I haven't finished reading it for the 5th time. I've been too busy recently." The woman closed the book in her hand, looked at her daughter and said, "Have you finished the tea?" "Yes." Qin Etian nodded and took The Little Prince from his mother's hand. He took a bookmark and put it where his mother had just read it. He said, "The ending has been predestined. It's just a formality." The woman nodded and said, "You won and Qin Chong didn't lose." "I know." Qin Etian nodded and said, "After what happened to Junwei and the judgment of the elders tonight, I'm afraid my brothers in the family hate me even more, right? Who asked me to be a woman? A woman should be a good wife and have more children. Why should I be in charge of the family business? You've done all the things that men should do. What do you want them to do? Do you know why I hold on to the power in my hands?" The woman asked. "I don't know." Qin Etian shook his head. "You've never told me either. But I know you're not a person who is greedy for power. The more they want it, the more I won't give it to them," the woman said. "I just want to tell them that you can't compete with me." Qin Etian was stunned for a moment, then giggled and said, "I like this reason." The woman reached out and stroked her daughter's silky hair. She sighed softly and said, "It's just that releasing such news will eventually damage your reputation." Qin Etian smiled and said, "If you don't release it, others will release it. It's like a bomb. If we detonate it ourselves, the initiative is still in our hands. If we let them detonate it, it's hard to say what the result will be. Besides, even my mother helped me steal a man. How can I not win?" Chapter 709. After Fang Yin took a taxi to the address on the information, Zhang Jianjun's secretary had been waiting at the intersection for a long time. Seeing the taxi stop, Li Mingyun quickly walked over to help open the rear door. He used his hand to protect Fang Yan's head from hitting it and said respectfully, "Mr. Fang, it's not convenient for the boss to come out. He's waiting for you in the private room." Zhang Jianjun was the secretary of the chief and a close minister of the emperor. In such a sensitive and critical position, there were countless people who wanted to be on good terms with him every day. If he stood on the side of the road to welcome guests, the people behind him could probably line up to the west gate of Xuanwu Gate. Of course, It was also possible that Zhang Jianjun felt that Fang Yan was not worthy of him coming out to welcome him personally. Fang Yan stepped out and shook hands with Li Mingyun. He said with a smile, "We Jianghu people don't care about trifles. This way, please." Li Mingyun made an inviting gesture, and then walked to the side to lead the way. The young man was very young, but his eyes were sharp and his hands were fast, and he did things in a measured manner. Fang Yan thought to himself, Wuxia's most outstanding talents are probably fighting in the system, right? Along the corner of the red wall, they turned left and right for a few hundred meters before stopping at the intersection of a bluestone alley. Li Mingyun walked to the door of the first Sihiyuan at the end of the alley, and gently knocked on the door lock. The wooden door opened, and a beautiful woman in a palace dress bowed with a smile and said, "Your servant pays respect to the master." Li Mingyun waved his hand and said, "We Jianghu people don't care about trifles." He had learned from Fang Yan's words and used them in a practical manner. The woman wanted to lead the way in front, but Li Mingyun waved his hand and said, "I know the way." It was a traditional Sihiyuan restaurant with red walls and green tiles. It was somewhat similar to the popular private home cuisine outside. Li Mingyun pushed open the wooden door of the heavenly private room and said to Zhang Jianjun, who was sitting inside and drinking tea, "Boss, Mr. Fang is here. Can we serve the dishes?" "Wait a minute. There's still one guest who hasn't arrived," Zhang Jianjun said. As he spoke, Zhang Jianjun put down the teacup in his hand and took the initiative to shake hands with Fang Yan. "All the people here are familiar with each other. Once we go out, we'll be chatting nonstop, so we might as well hide here and enjoy some peace and quiet. Brother Fang Yan, don't take it to heart. We still have a long way to go." Zhang Jianjun shook hands with a lot of force. It was obvious that he was a soldier. "Brother Jianjun is too polite," Fang Yan said with a smile. Zhang Jianjun made an inviting gesture and said, "Let's have some tea first. A good brother is coming over." Fang Yan was curious about what kind of person Zhang Jianjun had to personally wait for, but he didn't ask this question. He looked at the antique decorations in the private room and said with a smile, "This is a good place. Ordinary people really can't find it." Zhang Jianjun said with a smile, "It's just a group of people who think they're so awesome showing off here. Usually this place is not open to the public. They need to be introduced by acquaintances. Nowadays, in order to satisfy the selfish desires of some people, they can really come up with all kinds of ideas. It's normal for businessmen to pursue profits," Fang Yan said with a smile. "Everyone has their own selfish desires. With selfishness and selfish desires, there will be people who will stand up to satisfy the selfishness and selfish desires of some people. As long as it's not against the law, it can't be said to be wrong. It's just that everyone wants to be a part of the people who are served. Everyone works so hard to live, seizing every seemingly insignificant opportunity, and refusing to let go. Isn't it for this goal?" Zhang Jianjun looked at Fang Yan thoughtfully and said, "To be honest, you're younger than I thought." Fang Yan squinted his eyes and smiled. He asked, "How old do you think I should be?" Zhang Jianjun didn't answer Fang Yan's question. Instead, he held the teacup and said calmly, "We used to have a gathering here often, but at that time, the person who came was Bai Xiu. Bai Xiu took a leave of absence, so I took his place for a few days." The smile on Fang Yan's face became even more radiant. He looked as if he didn't have any ulterior motives. "I know what kind of place Swallow Dock is, and I also know how much the chief values Swallow Dock. When I saw Bai Xiu, I thought he was the future of Swallow Dock. But I didn't expect that the person I took for granted as the future would never come again. Brother Jianjun, are you sad?" "Just a little sentimental," Zhang Jianjun said. "The people who used to drink and chat at the same table are gone. I have to say that life is fickle." Fang Yan smiled and said, "Yes, life is fickle. So I feel that people should maintain their own hearts. If they don't do things that they feel guilty about, they won't be afraid of ghosts knocking on the door." "What do you mean by feeling guilty? What do you mean by not feeling guilty?" Zhang Jianjun smiled and said, "Most of the time, people are just doing things for the cup of tea in their hands, the bowl of food on the table, and the position of the chair under their buttocks. Whether it's for a cup of tea or a bowl of food, Or perhaps for the position of the chair under their buttocks. We need to walk the right path and do good deeds. Why do farmers sleep so soundly at night? It's because every meal they eat is earned by their own hard work. They put in hard work and sweat. They have no fear or guilt in their hearts. According to health science, people will naturally live longer if they have fewer distracting thoughts. Zhang Jianjun nodded with a smile and said, "So, they have always been farmers. Farmers have their own ways of giving, businessmen have their own ways of giving, and officials are the same. They are flexible but they don't violate the rules. They are flexible but they don't step on the line. This is how a successful politician should be, right? What if someone steps on the line? A gentleman does not stand under a wall." Fang Yan said. "For those who abide by the rules, those people are walls that can be pushed down at any time." Zhang Jianjun sighed softly and looked at Fang Yan and said, "It's really not easy to be able to keep one's heart at such a young age. I study Tai Chi. The most basic condition of Tai Chi is to have Qi in one's heart. What kind of Qi is that? It's the Qi of righteousness, the Qi of atmosphere, the Qi of mountains and rivers, the Qi of the sun, moon and stars. How can a person who walks in the dark all day see the Qi of righteousness, the Qi of mountains and rivers, the Qi of the sun, moon and stars?" Zhang Jianjun was silent for a long time and said, "No wonder the chief thinks so highly of you. You should be an official." Fang Yan shook his head and said, "Any field needs a good person like me who has principles and limits." Zhang Jianjun was stunned for a moment and then burst out laughing. Fang Yan also smiled. As he smiled, his gaze became piercingly cold. There was a murderous aura. This murderous aura was not emitted by Zhang Jianjun, who was beside him, but from outside the door. The murderous aura penetrated the wall and hit the face, which proved that this person was extremely powerful. However, such a powerful person could control his murderous aura, but he didn't hide it, which proved that the other party just wanted to put some pressure on him, and didn't mean to hurt him. "The guest is here," Fang Yan said. "Really?" Zhang Jianjun turned around but didn't see the guest. A few seconds later, the door of the room was pushed open, and a young man in black appeared at the door of the room. Before the man entered the room, there was a fierce aura attacking the people in the room. His eyes directly ignored Zhang Jianjun, the host, and swept over to Fang Yan. The two people looked at each other, and it felt like an ice knife against a frost sword. The man refused to dodge, and Fang Yan couldn't retreat. It was just a staring contest. He had practiced it when he was a child. He didn't believe that he couldn't exhaust him to death. Zhang Jianjun originally wanted to stand up and make an introduction. When he got up, he found that the situation between the two people was not right, so he sat back with a smile on his face. He wanted to see how these two people would end up. 30 seconds, 50 seconds, 1 minute. Li Mingyan appeared at the door again. Looking at the man blocking the door, she said, "Mr. Gongsun, why don't you go in and have some tea?" The man in black broke his disguise and glanced at Li Mingyan with dissatisfaction. He lifted his feet and walked into the private room. Zhang Jianjun got up, looked at the man in black and said, "Gongsun, I've been waiting for you." He pointed at Fang Yan who was drinking tea and said, "This is Fang Yan from Swallow Dock. You should get to know each other better in the future." Then he pointed at the man in black and said to Fang Yan, "Gongsun Qi, the disciple of the Divine Dragon. People call him Little Divine Dragon." Fang Yan's expression froze, and the way he looked at Gongsun Qi was filled with killing intent. This was the disciple of the Divine Dragon, Gongsun Qi? He knew that the Divine Dragon had entered the Red Wall a few years ago, becoming a consecrator of the Xian division that was responsible for the safety of the country's leader. It was said that there were several heavenly Dao realm experts in the Xian division, and the weaker ones could reach the quasi-heaven Dao realm. Although one would lose some freedom when trapped in the Red Wall, there were countless treasures in the Red Wall. Any request could be satisfied. At their level, not only did they need to rely on self-cultivation, they also needed to rely on herbs and Dharma artifacts to cultivate. Just like how some Western magicians needed large family clans to provide them with countless magic crystals, these cultivators also needed all sorts of herbs to nourish their bodies. They needed all sorts of rare beasts and stones to improve themselves. Who could be wealthier than the country, their financial backer. Gong Sun Chi pricked up his brows and stared coldly at Fang Yan. He said, "You want to kill me?" How could Gong Sun Chi not see the saber flash in Fang Yan's eyes? How can that be? Fang Yan chuckled and waved his hand, looking like a good person. He looked seriously at Gong Sun Chi and said, "I want to kill your master." Chapter 710. I want to kill your master. These were Fang Yan's heartfelt words. Why did he have such a strong desire? Because he subconsciously thought that the Fang family's current situation was directly related to the old drunkard Mo Qingdi's meridians being broken by the dragon god. It could also be said that it was the fuse. If the old drunkard was still Mo Qingdi, who would dare to bully the Fang family? If the old drunkard was still Mo Qingdi, who would dare to kill Fang Yixing and destroy Fang Yan's family? If the old drunkard was still Mo Qingdi, Fang Yan's life would not be so difficult and dangerous now, right? It was like a common scene in TV dramas. The male protagonist was originally from a wealthy family, but his father, the head of the family, was killed by someone. From then on, the family's financial situation plummeted, and he was bullied and looked down upon. The male protagonist's anger soared, and he began to work hard to avenge his father. Fang Yan was the male protagonist in another melodramatic drama. There was someone who could behead someone from 1,000 miles away, and someone who wanted to kill his master while chatting. Zhang Jianjun and Gong Sun Chi's expressions changed when they heard Fang Yan's words. Zhang Jianjun looked at Fang Yan with a serious expression and said, "Fang Yan, be careful with what you say. Senior Dragon God is a national treasure. You must not attack him with words." Fang Yan said with a smile, "He is a national treasure, so I can't even scold him now?" Back then, Mo Qingdi was also a national treasure, right? Even the chief took special care of him at that time, right? And the result? Didn't he still get his meridians broken? One can only hear the new laugh. Who can hear the old cry? Is this the country's attitude towards the old who serve the country? Zhang Jianjun shook his head and said, "The situation is different. They were a fair challenge at that time." "I didn't say it was an unfair challenge," Fang Yan said seriously. "When I challenge the dragon god, I hope Brother Jianjun can be our witness." Martial artists valued the relationship between their masters the most. A master was like a father, and Gong Sun Chi was no exception. Hearing Fang Yan say that he wanted to kill his master, Gong Sun Chi sneered and said, "You're looking at the sky from the bottom of a well. How ridiculous. You can forget about defeating me, yet you still want to challenge my master? I'm afraid you won't be able to withstand the might of my master's sword, right? I know why you hate my master so much. It's because he injured your senior brother. Don't underestimate him." Back then, Mo Qingdi was invincible when he was at his peak, but he was still defeated by master's rabbit head sword. Not to mention the immature you. All right. Zhang Jianjun waved his hand and said, "Don't start a war of words as soon as you meet. Take your seats. We still have business to discuss." Fang Yan's expression changed very quickly as he said with a smile, "A guest follows the host's wishes. I'll listen to Big Brother Jianjun's arrangement." Gong Sun Chi had always been an iceberg. From the moment they met, he had kept a straight face, so no one knew how he was feeling now. Under Zhang Jianjun's arrangement, Fang Yan and Gong Sun Chi sat on his left and right respectively. When Li Mingyun saw the guests at the table, he quickly turned around and went out to order the restaurant to serve the dishes. The dishes were all some home-cooked dishes. The ingredients were not extraordinary, but the cooking was very exquisite. Zhang Jianjun looked at Fang Yan and Gong Sun Chi and said, "I heard that people in Jianghu like wine. I wonder if you two are interested in drinking a few cups? Shall the three of us drink some white wine?" "We don't agree with each other. No wine." Gong Sun Chi directly refused. Fang Yan also looked at Zhang Jianjun with a smile and said, "I like wine, but it depends on who I drink with. How can there be no wine when meeting a good friend? Why don't I accompany Big Brother Jianjun for a drink or two?" Zhang Jianjun nodded and said, "All right. We'll drink a bottle, half a caddy each. I don't dare to drink too much. I still have to return to the chief after dinner." "I understand," Fang Yan said. Gong Sun Chi didn't drink, nor did he move the chopsticks in front of him. It was as if he had no appetite for the food on the table. Fang Yan and Zhang Jianjun drank 3 cups in a row, and the bottle of white wine was mostly gone. Fang Yan said with a smile, "Brother Jianjun has a good capacity for liquor." After a few cups of wine, Zhang Jianjun's impression of Fang Yan improved greatly. Although he was worried about Gong Sunqi's identity as a disciple of the Divine Dragon, he felt that this guy who liked to pretend to be cool had a low EQ and looked like a fool. He said with a smile, "I was in the army back then, and then I was asked to work by the chief. The chief was the commander of the Iron Wool Corps, and he took down one mountain after another with his brothers. Until now, he still likes to ask some talents from the military to work by his side. He always said that the army was hard, and there were too few opportunities. Many talented young people didn't have the chance to make a name for themselves." Fang Yan raised his glass and said with respect, "To the chief." "To the chief." Zhang Jianjun clinked his glass with Fang Yan again. Gong Sunqi also wanted to the chief, but the two of them didn't call him at all. He was too embarrassed to go over with a teacup, so he could only suppress his dissatisfaction in his heart. After drinking a bottle of wine, Zhang Jianjun's face turned slightly red, but Fang Yan looked as if nothing had happened. Zhang Jianjun laughed and patted Fang Yan's shoulder hard, saying, "I heard you chatting with the chief. You said that the children of Swallow Dock drink with a cup. At that time, I thought you were bragging, but now it seems that it's true." Fang Yan smiled modestly and said, "You are really good at bragging. You can blow a cow into the air with one breath." "I know that Brother Fang Yan didn't drink well today. Let's get together another day. However, there is indeed an urgent matter that requires the two of you to take action today." "What is it?" Fang Yan asked. Gong Sunqi also looked over curiously. Zhang Jianjun smiled and said, "This matter is too confidential, and this is not the place to talk. This time, I invited you two out mainly because the chief has ordered that you two will be responsible for this mission. Let's eat and get to know each other first, so that you can cooperate tacitly when carrying out missions in the future." Fang Yan smiled bitterly and said, "Big Brother Jianjun, haven't you investigated before? Between the two of us, I want to kill him with a palm, and he also wants to stab me with a sword. Under such circumstances, how can the two of us cooperate tacitly?" Zhang Jianjun's face became serious and said, "Is personal hatred or national hatred greater? If you can't distinguish between personal hatred and national hatred, who do you think will be hit in the end because of internal strife?" Fang Yan and Gong Sunqi looked at each other, both of them silent. Zhang Jianjun's expression eased a little and said, "You are both the most outstanding talents of the country. One is from Swallow Dock, one is from the mysterious department, one is the soul of the people, and the other is an official elite. In the future, there will be too many areas where the two of you will need to cooperate. You two must distinguish the importance." Fang Yan nodded with absolute certainty and said, "Big Brother Jianjun, don't worry. I will actively cooperate and try my best to complete the mission. As for whether my teammates will cheat me or not, it's hard to say." Gong Sunqi's face was full of contempt as he sneered and said, "People who speak nice words generally don't look good when they do things. Don't tell lies in front of our big brother Jianjun. There are many people in the government who speak nice words. Don't tell me they don't look good when they do things. Damn you." Gong Sunqi suffered a big loss in words, so he wanted to draw his sword. Zhang Jianjun waved his hand and said, "Now you two know each other. Wait for the mission notice. Someone will contact you when the time comes." With that, Zhang Jianjun pushed the chair and got up to leave. When he walked to the door, Zhang Jianjun stopped again and turned to look at Fang Yan and Gong Sunqi, saying, "I have paid for the tea and the meal. If you two break any tables or chairs, you will have to pay for it yourself. A friendly reminder, the things inside are really not cheap." With that said, he laughed and left. Fang Yan and Gong Sunqi sat there, staring at each other, as if they would draw their swords at any time. After a long time, Gong Sunqi looked at Fang Yan and asked, "Are the things inside very expensive?" "They don't look cheap," Fang Yan said. "Did you bring any money?" "No." Crash. Gong Sunqi stood up and looked coldly at Fang Yan, saying, "In that case, let's fight another day." "Then it's settled," Fang Yan said. Gong Sun-chi snorted coldly and pushed the door to leave in a very free and easy manner. Fang Yan sat in the same place, thinking about his own things. Gong Sun-chi appeared, so what about his master, the divine dragon Wuxia? He broke the tendons of the old drunkard Mo Qingdi's hand, so he should be worried about the Fang family coming to seek revenge, right? Did his line of sight notice her? Also, Zhang Jianjun knew that the Fang family and the divine dragon had a grudge, but he still set up a trap to bring him and Gong Sun-chi together. What did he want to do? Was this his intention, or the intention of the old man behind him? I can't figure it out. Fang Yan drank up the last drop of wine in the cup and muttered to himself. I really can't figure it out. When Zhang Jianjun returned to the Silver Needle courtyard, the old man was sitting at the table practicing calligraphy. Zhang Jianjun eagerly ran to help the old man make a cup of tea, and then stood quietly in the distance to watch. The old man came from the army, so his calligraphy was not beautiful, and the level was not too high. But the strength was great, and the ink penetrated the back of the paper. Moreover, every horizontal and vertical stroke of his calligraphy was extremely regular, looking decent and elegant, as if it was mimeographed for students to practice calligraphy. Of course, he himself was also imitating the handwriting. Skillful and easy. These were the 4 big characters on the paper. Because of the excessive strength, at first glance, they looked like 4 big ink balls. After the old man finished writing, he carefully looked for a while, shook his head gently and said, I have always followed the principle of skillful and easy in dealing with people, but I am not skillful at all when I write. It is too shallow and frivolous, and the words are heavy. If you don't like it, I will put it away and mount it on the wall of our living room, Zhang Jianjun said with a smile. The old man threw the brush into the ink pool and said, If you like it, take it, but don't mount it. If you do so, it is not because the calligraphy is good, but because of the identity of the writer. You must not learn this kind of vulgar and bad habit. Yes, Zhang Jianjun promised with a smile, and handed the towel to the old man to wipe his hands. While wiping his hands, the old man looked at Zhang Jianjun and asked, Have they met? Yes. Zhang Jianjun nodded and said, How is it? It will happen at any moment. Chapter 7:11. On the verge of exploding. The old man chewed on this comment and said, This phrase is not as good as handling with ease. At their age, how could they learn the essence of handling with ease? Wasn't Mo Qingdi young and promising back then? At that time, you were still a correspondent. When Mo Qingdi came to see me for the first time, I asked him what his hobbies were. He said drinking and writing. Kung Fu was only ranked 3rd. I told him that I couldn't compete with him in drinking, and it was even more impossible for me to compete with him in Kung Fu. In the end, he wrote handling with ease for me. Do you still remember his handwriting? Yes. How could I not remember? Zhang Jianjun smiled and said, The chief even asked me to hang Mo Qingdi's calligraphy in my bedroom, and I've been studying it day and night. Later, the chief kept practicing handling with ease. That must have something to do with him, right? That's right. The old man nodded with a smile. Mo Qingdi's calligraphy was really handling with ease. His strength was even, and his strokes were well proportioned. He could make people feel his strength and bearing, and also show them the beauty of his form. After that, I often reflected that ruling a big country is like cooking a small fish, so I need to do it with ease. Both of them are good, but their hearts are too vicious and their personal grudges are deep, so it's not easy to use them. But there's still a difference between them. Zhang Jianjun said with a smile. Fang Yan's heart is vicious, but he's well controlled and can control his emotions well. Not to say handling with ease, but at least he knows when to advance and when to retreat. Gong Sun-chi's character is eccentric, and as Mr. Dragon God's disciple, his murderous aura is more intense. Perhaps it's his nature, his character is sharper, like an unsheathed sword. He doesn't hide it, and he doesn't hold back. The old man glanced at Zhang Jianjun and said with a smile, Looks like you like Fang Yan more, right? Zhang Jianjun also smiled and said, I have my own selfish motives. Fang Yan offered to drink with me, so I like him. Let's take a closer look. The old man said with a smile. Observe their words and actions. What we've got now is only a superficial conclusion. As for their nature, we can't make a decision yet. If we put them in such an environment, surely their nature will be more thoroughly exposed? But isn't this too dangerous? They have never been on a mission before. Danger? The old man glanced at Zhang Jianjun and said, in ancient times, the swordsman learned the art of slaying dragons and sold it to the royal family. Nowadays, martial artists had to learn killing techniques to protect their country and their families. The way he said it was different, but the nature was the same. Whether it was in the past or in the future, these people with extraordinary skills are the pillars of our country. That is their responsibility, as it is ours. It's all for the sake of making people's lives safer and happier. I understand. Zhang Jianjun nodded solemnly and said, I will arrange this matter well. Go and rest. The old man waved his hand and said, I'll look at the documents for a while. I also have some documents to read. Zhang Jianjun said, I'm in the small office outside. If you have any instructions, just call me and I'll come. The old man ignored Zhang Jianjun and walked straight to the desk. He flipped open a red document and began to read it. For people like them, there were countless decisions that needed to be made every day, and every decision was related to the people. They couldn't be the slightest bit careless. The news that Jiang Junling had been banished from the Jiang family, and his name had been struck off from the Jiang family genealogy, had finally spread. The news had first come from Jun Shiwen, and it was Fang Yan who had exposed this secret in front of everyone. Later on, someone had brought this matter to General Xing, and General Xing had replied with great certainty that this was indeed the case. General Xing's attitude had instantly dispelled all the suspicions of the outside world. No one had expected that the Jiang family's old patriarch, Jiang Shifu, who had always been protective of his son, would act so viciously and mercilessly. This could be considered the most exciting thing to happen in Yanjing in recent times, even suppressing the rumor that Qin Yitian was a mistress. Thus, the other key person who had caused the old patriarch to make this decision had also been revealed through the mouths of those with ulterior motives. Fang Yan. It was said that he had paid a visit to the Jiang family and eaten a bowl of dumplings that the old patriarch had personally made. Then the old patriarch had straightforwardly kicked his own grandson out. Fang Yan? Everyone slapped their heads in thought, feeling that this name was a bit familiar. Very quickly, some smart people discovered that the Fang Yan who had caused Jiang Junling to be kicked out was the same person as the man who had interfered with Qin Yitian as a third party, Fang Yan. Fang Yan. It was Fang Yan again. In a single night, Fang Yan had become an influential figure in Yanjing. Back then, he had a conflict with Jiang Junling. That's right, back at the Maple Leaf Club, he had a direct conflict with Jiang Junling. I was also there. I heard that back then, he had caused Jiang Junling to suffer a huge loss. Jiang Junling bore a grudge and chased him all the way to Huaqing 3 years later. I don't know what Jiang Junling had done in Huaqing for the Jiang family's patriarch to actually chase him out of the Jiang family. This Fang Yan must not be provoked, and I don't know what his background is either. I just don't understand. For a woman like Qin Yitian, even if she wanted the stars in the sky, there would be people willing to pluck them down for her. Why would she want to be a man's mistress? One by one, the incidents where Fang Yan had made a name for himself in Yanjing were all dug out. There were even people who had made a copy of the picture of him that he had posted on the school's famous teacher program, when he was teaching at Rosefinch Secondary. When someone asked about it, he would open his phone and take out the picture of Fang Yan and say, "Here, this is it." Then, those who saw the picture would have a look of surprise and say that he looked very ordinary. In all honesty, how handsome can anyone's picture be? Do they have the guts to put their ID cards on the internet? Hearing Xia Chen's description, Fang Yan said angrily. Xia Ji laughed so hard that he couldn't straighten his back and said, "That's right, when my friends said you weren't handsome, I answered them the same way." Seeing Xia Chen's happy appearance, Fang Yan couldn't help but laugh and said, "You've been busy lately, right? You look a little thinner, but you're in pretty good spirits." "Did I really lose weight?" Xia Chen happily said, "I've been using the fruit and vegetable diet method to lose weight recently, so it really worked. When I look in the mirror myself, I don't feel too obvious. I've been busy before, and I still am. But aren't you being a little too disloyal? You didn't even greet me when you arrived in Beijing? If Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin hadn't come back drunk, I wouldn't have known that they had already met you. I heard you're going to participate in an event. Xiaji rolled his eyes and said disdainfully, Please, when will I not participate in an event? I have to participate in a lot of activities every day, okay? You just don't want to call me. You're afraid that I'll disturb your gathering with those two little girls, right? Sigh, men these days all like the young. No one is interested in the old ones like me. I really don't have one. Fang Yan helplessly rubbed his nose and smiled bitterly. Xiaji picked up the coffee in front of him and took a sip. He looked at Fang Yan and asked, Fang Yan, how are you doing? It's hard to say whether it's good or not. Fang Yan said with a smile. It's hard to say, but at least I'm still alive. Let's just say that we're in danger every day. Don't look at us sitting together happily drinking coffee now. Maybe someone will come and kill me later. I'm not surprised that this happened. It's not a good idea to always be like this. Xiaji sighed and said, You dodged it once, you dodged it twice, but can you hide for the rest of your life? What can I do? Fang Yan asked. Xiachen thought for a moment, then gritted his teeth and made a difficult decision. He said, How about I bring you back to see my grandfather and tell him that you're my best friend? We'll beg him to speak softly to the old man of the Jiang family. My grandfather and the old man of the Jiang family have some friendship. If he is willing to step forward, perhaps there will be a turn for the better. Fang Yan looked at Xiaji with a face full of emotion and said, Xia, for you to say such words proves that you sincerely treat me as a friend. Nonsense. Xiaji snappily said. When did I not treat you as a friend? You, on the other hand, you forgot your friends and didn't even call me when you arrived in Beijing. Fang Yan smiled but did not reply. He knew that if he were to tangle with a woman on this topic, he wouldn't be able to explain it clearly in 3 to 5 days. But there's really no need. Fang Yan said. There was also another old man who brought me to visit Jiang Shifu. He also had the intention of speaking on my behalf, but he was unable to say the words. Jiang Shifu would rather banish his own grandson from the Jiang family than have any intention of privately reconciling. He is determined to fight to the death with me. To offend such a huge monster. Xia looked at Fang Yan with a face full of worry and said, You must be careful. I've lived in Beijing for so many years, but I still don't know how big the Jiang family is. I'm afraid even my grandfather doesn't know. It's really hard to feel at ease with such an opponent. I'm not afraid of your jokes. Fang Yan smiled and said, Even when I sleep, I open one eye and close one eye. I'm afraid that if I accidentally fall asleep, I won't be able to open my eyes again. Even when you sleep, you turn a blind eye. That's because you've done too many guilty things, right? A young man stood behind Fang Yan and said in a hostile voice, Fang Yan, why aren't people like you dead yet? How can you still be alive? Fang Yan spread out his hands towards Xiaji and helplessly said, Look, I was right. Trouble will come knocking at your door at any time. Chapter 7:12. When people are unlucky, they will become more and more unlucky. This sentence was said by Fang Yan. Fang Yan felt that he could use his own name to name a Fang Yan law. The afternoon tea at the Palace Hotel was very famous. Some celebrities and socialites liked to meet here or talk about things. Fang Yan didn't have a house in Beijing, and he didn't want to disturb others, so he stayed at the Palace Hotel. When he called in the summer, he heard that Fang Yan was staying at the Palace Hotel, so he said that his activity venue wasn't far from here. He made an appointment with Fang Yan to have afternoon tea here. They had been sitting here for less than half an hour when the Fang Yan law came into play. Once again, bad luck came knocking on their door. It was just as he had said to Xiaji just now. Don't look at us sitting together happily drinking coffee. Maybe someone will come and kill me in a while. Of course, the person who spoke might not be able to kill Fang Yan, and there were only a handful of people in this world who could kill him. However, the other party obviously wanted to insult him, or be insulted by him. In any case, he didn't want to make things easy for Fang Yan. Not even for a minute. Seeing that Fang Yan was still mocking herself, Xia smiled and said, You can even set up a stall under the bridge. There's no more accurate fortune teller than you. Then you have to take care of my business, Fang Yan said with a smile. Look, I still have some things to take care of. How about? It doesn't matter. Xia Xia rejected Fang Yan's hidden suggestion and said, I'm not busy, I can wait for you. Fang Yan smiled. After getting the woman's understanding, he turned to look at the man standing behind him and asked, Enteng, who gave you the courage to stand in front of me? Enteng, Phoenix's brother. When he was very young, he had followed his family to Swallow Dock. It was just that he was a proud person and looked down on the poor kids in the village because of his status as a city dweller. The first time they met, he had a conflict with Fang Yan. That was because they drove a green Hummer back. When Yi Fengsheng saw it, he exclaimed that the car was so cool and that he wanted to buy one when he grew up. As he spoke, he used his hand to touch the hard lines of the car. Enteng was furious. He shouted, Don't touch my car, and punched Yi Fengsheng's back. Fang Yan stood beside Yi Fengsheng. How could he let his good brother suffer a loss? He threw Enteng over his shoulder and sent him flying. From then on, Enteng no longer had any contact with the children of Swallow Dock. Even the number of times he went there was pitifully low. Even if he went there, he would hide in his old house and play games. He would not play with Fang Yan, Yi Fengsheng, and the other children. The little fellows of Swallow Dock all liked phoenixes, so everyone called her Phoenix. None of Swallow Dock's friends liked Enteng, so Li Xiaotian gave him the nickname Crow, who asked him to be disliked. Later, as Enteng grew up, he became more and more resentful towards Fang Yan for throwing him away. There were 2 times when they met that Fang Yan wanted to be friends with him, so that Phoenix would not be in a dilemma. However, when he saw that Enteng was looking at him with a murderous look, Fang Yan let go of that thought. You can lower your head to a dog, but don't ever think of associating with a wolf. A dog will only bite you once, but a wolf will eat you whole without spitting out the bones. After that, the 2 of them did not have any contact. They studied and worked. Fang Yan went to Huaxing, and Enteng was nowhere to be found. He did not expect that the 2 of them would meet in this hotel restaurant. Moreover, Enteng was so murderous that he took the initiative to look for trouble. This was the first time Fang Yan had seen someone from the Yin clan since Phoenix's accident. He took the initiative to greet Xia Chen and said, Sister Xia, I didn't mean to disturb your mood, but when I saw a heartless person like Fang Yan, I felt a bit of anger in my heart. I'm here to expose his ugly face, so that everyone else can be vigilant. Xia Chen was expressionless as he stirred the coffee in his cup with a spoon and said, That's your private matter. You guys can handle it yourselves. Xia Chen was no stranger to Enteng. He was not afraid, nor did he want to cause trouble. She had heard a little about what had happened between Yu Yao and Fang Yan, but she did not know much about what had happened in between. In the encirclement incident that took place on the summit of One Sword Peak, the people involved were either dead or escaped. A few of them were monks and Taoist priests who kept their mouths shut about this matter. Other than guessing, the outside world had no other way to know the truth, including the reason why Jiang Junling was expelled from the Jiang clan. It also made countless people scratch their hearts and lungs to find out the truth. Fang Yan, what did you do to my sister? Forcing her to go to the Lotus Temple to be a nun? Whether she is good or bad to you, as long as you are not blind, you will definitely be able to see it. Do you still have a conscience for treating him like this? A heartless person like you is worse than a pig or a dog. No wonder Qin Yitian has been rumored to be your mistress recently. So it turns out that you abandoned him after climbing up a higher branch. Enteng's handsome face was twisted, as if he had some kind of blood feud with Fang Yan. Beside Enteng stood a pure and sweet girl. She also looked at Fang Yan with a look of this guy is a scum, her face full of disgust and hostility. Heartless person? Mistress? Abandoned after taking advantage of? Fang Yan carefully sorted out the contents of Enteng's words, and finally understood what he was trying to express. In other words, in Enteng's mind, he was Phoenix's boyfriend, and Phoenix was also infatuated with him. In the end, when she ran to Huaxing to find him, she found out that he climbed up a higher branch called Qin Yitian, so she abandoned him and broke up with Phoenix. In a rage, Phoenix cut off her relationship with the mortal world. and became a nun. What a wonderful and exciting melodramatic drama. If it was made into a novel, it would definitely be a big seller, right? Fang Yan had already thought of the name. It would be called My Ex-Girlfriend Became a Nun, and the number of hits on the website would quickly exceed 100 million. However, from Ntung's words, Fang Yan obtained an extremely useful conclusion. He understood his sister's feelings for him. Was Phoenix too obvious? Or had his sister once exposed her heart to her brother? Phoenix, thinking of Phoenix's indifferent but determined appearance outside the Lotus Temple, Fang Yan's heart began to ache again. The people around him either passed away or left. Was he the descendant of Sirius? Was he destined to be alone for the rest of his life? Fang Yan opened his mouth and wanted to laugh, but felt that his laughter was too inexplicable. He looked at the girl next to Ntung and asked, "Do you believe what he said? Phoenix mentioned you to me. Every time we talked, she would talk about you. I am also a woman, and I know how a woman likes a man. She can't bear it and she can't hide it. Every word can be led to him, and she wants the whole world to say good things about him." The girl stared at Fang Yan with disdain and said, "Phoenix suddenly decided to become a nun. It must have something to do with you, you scumbag." "It has something to do with me." Fang Yan nodded and said, "You admit it yourself?" Ntung sneered. "You ruined a woman's life, do you know that? You scumbag, are you still human?" "But it's not the kind of relationship you think," Fang Yan said. "Not the kind of relationship we think. What kind of relationship is that?" Ntung thought that Fang Yan was quibbling, so he said harshly, "Fang Yan, stop explaining. What kind of bastard are you? I saw through you many years ago. My sister is now in the temple and praying to Buddha, but you are outside drinking. Do you have the heart? Your conscience has been eaten by dogs. Because..." Fang Yan sighed softly and said, "It's not me who forced her to be a nun. It's your family who forced her to be a nun." Ntung laughed and pointed to Fang Yan and said, "Fang Yan, are you crazy? Our family forced her to be a nun? Everyone in our family likes her, and everyone treats her like a phoenix. Why would we force her to be a nun? You just want to shirk your responsibility. How can you say such a thing? It's your family who forced her to be a nun," Fang Yan said firmly. Perhaps Ntung didn't know anything, but at this moment, Fang Yan's hatred for the Yin family suddenly emerged from the depths of his bones. He hated the Yin family, hated everyone in the Yin family. These people were all executioners, living butchers. They killed his relationship with Phoenix, and also Phoenix's life. If it wasn't for your Yin family, Phoenix and I would have been together a long time ago. Maybe we would be married and have children now. If it wasn't for your Yin family, how could Phoenix force herself to be with a pervert like Bai Xiao? If it wasn't for your Yin family, Fang Yan didn't know how to tell Ntung about what happened that night. It was the scar that Phoenix carved on his heart, and it was also the scar that Phoenix left on her face. That kind of thing was too cruel. If he told Ntung about it, everyone's soul would be hurt again. Phoenix had become a nun, and she wanted to atone for her sins. How could Fang Yan expose that scandal and turn Phoenix into a cursed and vicious woman? Even in the heart of the victim, she was not a vicious woman. How could he bear to let some insignificant people scold her like that? He didn't want Phoenix to suffer that kind of harm, even if it would make him feel wronged. However, Fang Yan didn't like the feeling of being wronged. That feeling was too uncomfortable. It was as if there was a powerful airflow running wildly in his body, looking everywhere for an exit, wanting to break out of his body. Since his heart was holding back, he had to find a way to vent it. So Fang Yan picked up the coffee in front of him and splashed it on Ntung's angry face. Chapter 7:13. Holding one's breath and then releasing it, tightening and then relaxing. This was the way of Tai Chi after venting his anger. Fang Yan immediately felt refreshed and his thoughts were clear. Even the summer that he was sitting on the opposite side of him, which was originally shining brightly, became 10 times or even dozens of times better than before. Even when he saw the layer of gray coffee juice on Ntung's face, Fang Yan felt that he was a little cute and wanted to kiss him. "Ah!" the girl next to Ntung exclaimed. He didn't know if it was because her reaction was half a beat slow, or she needed time to think about whether to shout, "Ah" or "yeah." Anyway, Fang Yan felt that the rhythm of her shouting was very unprofessional. It was like after someone slapped you in the face, you should immediately shout, "Ah," or "ya" to match the situation. After someone slapped you in the face, you only shouted, "Ah," after 3 hours. Wasn't there something wrong with your brain? It was also because of this reason that Fang Yan didn't like this girl very much. Although her delicate appearance was still in line with Fang Yan's aesthetic standards, he felt that the other party's acting was too exaggerated. However, the effect was achieved in the end. It should be known that most of the people who would come to a place like the Palace Hotel for afternoon tea were socialites or ladies pretending to be socialites. When they ate the pastries, they tasted them in small bites, and when they chewed, they made no sound. When they talked, if you didn't lean in, you wouldn't be able to hear what they were saying. The girl's scream immediately broke the quiet and elegant environment of the Palace Hotel. It was like a murderous howl, and everyone's eyes were attracted to it. The coffee was first poured on Ntung's face in pieces. Then it began to dilute and spread down his face. The gray juice dripped on Ntung's face, neck, clothes. It also slipped into Ntung's mouth, which made Fang Yan's stomach turn and he felt waves of nausea. He had already drunk half of that cup of coffee. Was this an indirect kiss? After the girl shouted, she finally realized what she should do. She took out a handkerchief from her pocket and quickly used it to wipe the coffee on Ntung's face. Ntung grabbed the handkerchief from her hand and wiped his face. His eyes were bloodshot, and he stared at Fang Yan and shouted, "Fang Yan, don't go too far." "Who's the one who's going too far?" Fang Yan pushed away the sofa under his butt and stood up. He looked at Ntung with a serious expression and said, "Ntung, I don't know if you really don't know or not. Go back and ask. Ask your parents, ask your uncles, or ask that old man in your family. Go and ask them, did they go too far? I don't need to go back and ask them. I can see it myself now. Everyone with eyes can see it." Ntung pointed at his messy face and shouted, "Fang Yan, how immoral are you to do something like this? Your behavior is just like a shrew's way of fighting and swearing. No wonder you can't be seen in public. No wonder my family doesn't want my sister to be with you. The fundamental reason is that you don't deserve my sister. You are a rustic wild dog. Do you think you can rush to Yanjing and get a foothold at the foot of the imperial city just by wagging your tail? Let me tell you, you are dreaming." Fang Yan looked at Ntung as if he was looking at an idiot. He pointed at his feet and said, "I have already got a foothold at the foot of the imperial city. Am I dreaming now? It's such a simple thing. Is it a very difficult thing for you to stand here with your feet firmly? Do you need to wag your tail at others? Ntung, do you know what I dislike the most about you? I don't dislike your fake aloofness or the pride in your bones. I don't dislike your attitude that you are number one in the world. This is indeed a bit annoying. What I dislike the most is that you are standing in front of me at this moment." Fang Yan pointed at the crowd that was looking at them and said, "Do you know what they were talking about just now? They were talking about why I forced Jiang Shifu to expel Jiang Junling from the family. They were talking about why Qin Etian, that kind of girl, would like me. Who is my opponent? It's Jiang Junling and the entire Jiang family." Fang Yan swept an extremely disdainful glance at Ntung and said, "I am the focus of the crowd. I am the topic of discussion of the entire Yanjing people. But you came to provoke me at this time. What do you mean? You want to use my name to become famous? You want to step on me to rise? Do you think that by doing this, others will think that you have the qualifications to be my opponent? I can splash coffee on your face. Do you have the ability to splash coffee on my face?" Ntung breathed heavily. His black pupils darkened and the white of his eyes turned red. His eyes showed a kind of sick blood-red color, like a bloodthirsty wolf or a crazy dog. After listening to Fang Yan's words, he turned around and ran to a table. He picked up a lady's coffee and wanted to splash it on Fang Yan's face. Fang Yan reacted quickly. He pushed Ntung's little girlfriend in front of him as a shield and said mockingly, "Splash it. Do you have the ability to splash it? You bastard." Ntung felt that his bladder was about to explode because of Fang Yan. He held the cup of hot coffee and circled around Fang Yan, wanting to splash the coffee on his face. However, when he circled around, Fang Yan pulled the girl and also circled around, saying, "Splash it. Splash it on my face if you have the ability. No matter how Tung circled around, the one in front of him was always the miserable and pale little face of his little girlfriend. The onlookers were all stunned by this scene. They thought that they would see a wonderful show, but no one expected. This good show was such a child's play. I can't believe my eyes. A young girl in a red dress said to her companion. That guy. The guy who dragged a woman as a shield. Is he really the Fang Yan who forced Jiang Junling away? Are they playing house? Let's see if there are any cameras nearby. They must be filming. Xiaji was a little regretful. When Fang Yan just said that she could leave in advance if she had something to do, she shouldn't have hesitated and quickly left with her bag. How could I become friends with such a guy? Xiaji wailed in her heart. Her head was lowered, her long hair was scattered, and she tried not to look into anyone's eyes. She really couldn't afford to lose this person. Are you going to splash me? Fang Yan said proudly. Can't splash it. Tung raised the coffee cup in his hand several times, but his little girlfriend exclaimed. No, Tung doesn't want it. So Tung couldn't pour it down. The hotel staff finally couldn't stand it anymore as the commotion was so joyous and unscrupulous. The security guard at the door and the welcoming girl ran over together. The welcoming girl advised Tung. Sir, please put down the coffee cup. If you have something to say, let's talk. However, the security guard walked towards Fang Yan and said, Sir, please let go of this lady. You are breaking the law. If you don't let her go, we will call the police. Fang Yan pointed at Tung and said he wants to splash me with coffee. Sir, I promise you. Pa, when Tung was dodging the greeter's action, the coffee in his hand spilled out. The entire cup of coffee and the cup smashed into the security guard's chest. The security guard was stunned for a moment, then let out a blood-curdling scream. The coffee was too damn hot. Fang Yan sighed softly, looked at the security guard who was affected, and said, You see, you can't guarantee anything. Tung looked at the security guard who was scalded by the coffee and stopped chasing Fang Yan. Fang Yan let go of the girl, patted her on the shoulder and said, Go comfort him. What if he wants to commit suicide? The girl's eyes were wet. She rushed to hug Tung and cried. Tung's eyes were also red. He reached out and hugged the girl. He stared at Fang Yan fiercely and said, Fang Yan, today's shame. Okay. Fang Yan waved his hand impatiently and said, I know you want revenge. I know it even if you don't say it. Hurry up, or you won't be able to leave if I change my mind. And Fang Yan pointed to the security guard who was covering his chest and said, Pay for his medical expenses. It's not easy for him to find a job. Tung didn't say a word. He pulled the girl's hand and quickly left. Fang Yan took out a handkerchief from his pocket and handed it to the receptionist. He said, Help him wipe it. He then took out a credit card from his pocket and said, I'll pay for the medical expenses, I'll pay for the broken things. I'll leave this card with you for now. When Fang Yan sat down again, his face was full of exhaustion. Xia looked at his expression for a long time, then said in a low voice, Fang Yan, you're too tired. Yeah, I'm too tired. Fang Yan said with infinite emotion, If you want to take care of everyone's feelings, then you can only sacrifice your own feelings. I'm not afraid of you laughing at me, but when I saw that girl crying in her boyfriend's arms, I was actually very envious of her. I've always felt that I was the one who felt the most wronged and should be crying. But I just can't cry. If you want to cry, then cry. Xia looked at his sad eyes with infinite pity and said, Didn't King Lu sing it already? A man can cry, it's not a sin. I can't cry. Fang Yan rubbed her eyes hard, showing a strong look that wouldn't be easily overwhelmed by life. If you can't lower your head, the crown will fall. You can't cry. Idiots will laugh. Puchi. After holding it in for a long time, Xiaji couldn't help but laugh out loud. Fang Yan became anxious and quickly explained, Don't misunderstand, I didn't say you were an idiot. Chapter 7:14. It would have been better if Fang Yan didn't explain, but after listening to Fang Yan's explanation, Xia really wanted to smash the coffee cup in his hand into his face. What do you mean I didn't say you were an idiot? Xia thought angrily. However, she was happy in her heart. The only person who dared to talk to her like this, who dared to use such an insulting word like idiot to joke with her, was probably the only one in Fang Yan in all these years. Other men either treated her as a high and mighty star, or as a goddess with an extraordinary background. Some people, even if they wanted to show their affection and joke with her, it would just be a dragonfly touching the surface of the water. It would be too forceful and deliberate, and they would just laugh it off. Instead, they would think, so the relationship between us is just like that. Fang Yan said it so casually, so naturally joking with her. In his heart, he did indeed treat her as a friend. Look, a woman's mind is so strange. You love her and hold her, and she feels that your bones are cheap. If you belittled her and stepped on her, she would think that you were a bastard. It was not easy to master the degree of the relationship. However, a friendly reminder, don't treat women as goddesses. Fang Yan smiled and said, this is a line from a TV series. It's very popular on the internet. I'll borrow it for a while. I've seen this TV series. Xiachen said, as long as it's an outstanding work or a work that has a good reaction from the market, I will find time to carefully appreciate it. I'm always worried that I'm not doing well enough, so I have to constantly learn from others' strengths. You're already the movie queen. Who can be your teacher? Fang Yan said with a smile. How can there be a time to be satisfied? Xiaji shook his head and said, you're a little abnormal today. I thought of a friend. Fang Yan said, her ending shouldn't be like this. Is it Enteng's sister? I don't have much contact with her, but I heard that she's very beautiful. She's a famous beauty in Beijing. Xia said, they definitely wouldn't have thought that a person with such a vicious mouth would be so kind. Are you complimenting me? Fang Yan asked with a smile. If it weren't for her feelings, I'm afraid you wouldn't have let Enteng off so easily, right? Do you still remember what happened to us in Huaqing Sky No. 1? You could even deal with an insignificant person so cleanly. The Yin family has owed you too much, yet you allowed him to walk out unscathed. Xia thoughtfully sized up Fang Yan and said, I can't tell. I didn't expect you to be such a passionate person. Fang Yan forced a smile and said, how is this sentimental? She was my first love. Have you ever had your first love? It's the first time I've experienced the feeling of my heart racing. Unfortunately, it's impossible for us to do it again. A lot of things can never go back to the past. Xiachen comforted her and said, if we can't walk together, then we can only say that you guys aren't suitable. In any case, you have Yi Rou, Qin Yitian, Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin now. Especially Jiang Qin. It was as if he had been possessed. So many years had passed. How old was she at that time? I really don't know what you did to a child back then. I just asked them to study hard and make progress every day. Fang Yan smiled and said, if you don't believe me, go back and ask them. Maybe it's because they think what I said makes too much sense. Everyone knows what to say. Even if it makes sense, so what? Xia Chen pouted coquettishly and said, however, your current situation is getting worse and worse. You've already offended the Jiang family, and now you've offended the Yin family, as well as some enemies that I might not even know about. Fang Yan, how can you have such an ability? Why can you offend so many people wherever you go? I've explained this to others. I told them it's because I'm too outstanding. Fang Yan said, but in front of you, I have no choice but to tell the truth. Xiaji's face was full of curiosity as he asked, because what? Because my luck with women is too good. Fang Yan said in a low voice, if I didn't know Lu Chaoga back then, I wouldn't have come into contact with Jiang Zhulu. If I didn't come into contact with Jiang Zhulu, I wouldn't have become enemies with Jiang Junling. Later on, I realized that all the bad guys in the world are good friends. I don't know if your luck with women is good or not. Xia Kiki giggled and said, your last sentence is right. All the bad guys in the world are good friends. At that level, all the bad guys know each other. Because this circle is too small, there are always a few people jumping around. So I poked a hornet's nest? You can't say that. Xia brushed away the hair on his forehead and said with a serious expression, you have a lot of resources on hand. You have Swallowfort, at least the master of Swallowfort supports you. You have the support of the Qin family, your own Chang'an Empire, and the solid foundation of watching. You also have so many friends. If you need me, I'm willing to bring you back and beg the old man to help you. Although the strength on your side is too scattered, and you might be at a disadvantage in a clash, it's not like you're completely powerless. Fang Yan, think about it. 3 years ago, if someone had told me that you could contend against a giant like the Jiang family, I wouldn't have believed it no matter what. But now, I believe that you can contend against them. And I even believe that you will win in the end. I don't know if I will win. I only know that I must fight. Fang Yan said resolutely. Fighting is just a possibility of dying. If you don't fight, you will definitely die. Zhang Jianjun said that there was a mission for him and Gong Sunqi to carry out, but Fang Yan did not receive any news from the other party for a while, so he returned to Swallow Dock first. Although he was now a hot topic in Beijing, he was still unfamiliar with the city. Although Swallow Dock was his sad place, it also gave him a sense of belonging. This time he came back to ask for an answer from his teacher, and also to accompany his grandfather, whose health was getting worse and worse, and his mother, who had lost her lover. Fang Yan returned to Swallow Dock. Except for taking a walk with Yi Ro occasionally, he spent most of his time walking around Swallow Dock with his grandfather, Fang Huwei, or accompanying his mother, Lu Wan, to fertilize and weed the vegetable field beside his father's grave. The fresh fruits were all ripe, and he could pick a large basket every time. He couldn't finish it at home, so Fang Yan would carry a basket to the Yi family whenever he had something to do. Today, as usual, after sending his mother home in the Fang Yan, he carried a basket of freshly picked cucumbers, peppers, eggplants, and other food to the Yi family. Before he reached the Yi family's door, he heard the sound of fighting coming from the yard. Fang Yan could not help but grin. He did not expect that there would be someone else in Swallow Dock who dared to come to the Yi family and make trouble. After getting closer, he realized that it was not the case at all. Yi Fengxing, don't be a coward, come out. Yi Fengxing, do you think I can't do anything to you if you hide? Let me tell you, if you don't explain yourself today, I will beat you up every time I see you. Yi Fengxing. Don't pull me, Yi Fengxing, you irresponsible coward. Fang Yan found the voice to be familiar. When he crossed the threshold of the Yi family, he realized that the person cursing was Bailey Lu, whom he had not seen for a while. Bailey Lu was dressed in short clothes with a ribbon tied on his head. His sleeves were rolled up, and he looked like he was going to fight to the death. Bailey Lu's sister, Bailey Qingzhu, stood beside her brother and kept pulling her brother's sleeves. She tried to persuade him in a low voice, but Bailey Lu, who was in a rage, had no intention of listening to her explanation. Fang Yan did not see Yi Fengxing. Instead, he saw a few other juniors standing at the side watching the show. Seeing Fang Yan come in, Yezi came over with a smile and said, "There's a show to watch." "What show?" Fang Yan asked curiously. Unexpectedly, Yezi's face turned red all of a sudden. She glared at Fang Yan angrily and said, "You're so annoying. Did you do it on purpose?" "What do you mean, I did it on purpose?" Fang Yan felt even more strange and said, "I just came over, so I don't know what happened. That's why I asked you. Why are you like this?" "I'm ignoring you." Yezi stomped her feet and ran to the backyard. Obviously, she went to inform Yi Ro that Fang Yan was here. Fang Yan touched his nose and smiled bitterly. He handed the basket in his hand to the maid, Xiaomei, and said, "Send it to the kitchen." Xiaomei took it with a smile and said, "Young master, our family has also grown the vegetables you sent. How can they be the same?" Fang Yan said with his eyes wide open, "Look at these vegetables. Don't they look different from the vegetables in your house?" Xiaomei looked at them seriously. The maid said, "No. Not careful." Fang Yan said, "Not careful enough." Da Vinci said that there are no two eggs that are exactly the same in the world, and it is impossible for there to be two eggplants that are exactly the same in the world. Stop talking nonsense and quickly send it in. Fang Yan wanted to watch the show from the side, but the show just had to come to him. Yi Fengxing suddenly appeared behind him and whispered in his ear, "Little Yanzi, you have to think of a way to save me." Fang Yan was tall and thin, while Yi Fengxing was as fat as a ball. Therefore, when he hid behind Fang Yan, it was like a person holding a leaf to cover his body. Sure enough, Bailey Lu discovered Yi Fengxing's whereabouts. He leaped and punched towards where Fang Yan was standing. Chapter 7:15. The fist wind whistled, and the powerful qi crisscrossed. A majestic aura swept towards where Fang Yan and Yi Fengxing were standing. It was like a giant tornado had suddenly appeared, engulfing the two of them in an overwhelming manner. A seemingly solid black veil appeared above Fang Yan and Yi Fengxing's heads. That was the place where the wind from the fists gathered. The murderous aura released by the fists tore and collided with the surrounding air, giving off tiny explosive sounds. The murderous aura condensed above their heads and no longer dispersed, waiting for Bailey Lu's fist, which was the real killing move, to arrive and detonate the entire strong wind boundary. The Bailey clan started with their fists and became famous through their fists. The Bailey clan's godly fist was the strongest and most tyrannical fist, and also the fiercest and most courageous fist. Their fist manuals were filled with phrases such as one punch, no return, injuring 3,000 enemies, injuring 800. The peak of the Bailey clan's godly fist technique was when the boxing lunatic, Bailey Feng, was still alive. Bailey Feng had a nickname called Bailey Lunatic because his fist technique was exquisite, and he fought with no regard for his own life. He was also called Bailey Lunatic. Bailey Feng entered the way with his fists. His 100 miles godly fists were extremely effective in his hands. Countless experts of the Jianghu were sent flying by his fists. They did not even have the strength to resist. For a period of time, there was even a saying that it was better to provoke the awakening celestial sword than to provoke the 100-mile fist. The awakening celestial sword was the famed weapon of Xiangxi's swift swordsman Zhao Jingshan. A single awakening celestial sword was unstoppable. Bai Li Feng used the crazy fist to conquer the heavenly Tao, but he didn't expect that he would really become a madman. After failing to climb the mountain, he spent his days shouting that someone was out to kill him, and that he was going to commit suicide. In the end, he really committed suicide. Bailey Feng was the Bailey clan's most likely expert to successfully climb the heavenly way. He was also an expert who was infinitely close to the heavenly way. Bailey Lu's death was a huge blow to the Bailey clan. There was even a saying that godly fists do not enter the path. The godly fist could not enter the Tao? The people of the Bailey clan refused to accept this. Generation after generation worked hard, risking their lives, thinking of using their clan's ultimate arts to climb the heavenly Tao. Unfortunately, the world was mostly like this. You wouldn't be rewarded just because you put in the effort. To this day, the Bailey family still did not have a single fist master who could successfully climb the heavenly Tao. This was also the reason why Bailey Lu was so crazy. He toured the famous mountains and rivers all day long, looking for heroes all over the world to challenge. The pressure was huge. However, even if you're crazy, it's fine if you challenge others, but you can't just hit anyone you see, right? What if I can't beat you? Fang Yan cursed in his heart. Fang Yan, save me. Yi Fengxing shouted from behind. Bailey Lu was obviously coming for Yi Fengxing, but Yi Fengxing's strength was not as good as Bailey Lu's. Moreover, he had a guilty conscience, so how could he have the courage to fight? Therefore, he placed his hopes on Fang Yan, who was standing in front of him. Fang Yan was his good brother, and Fang Yan was his cousin-in-law. Fang Yan's kung fu was good, and Fang Yan's character was wonderful. Fang Yan would not leave them in the lurch. Although Yi Fengxing's face was full of shock, his heart was calm. He knew that Fang Yan would help him take this punch. Fang Yan gathered his energy in his dantian, and took a step forward with his right foot. Yi Fengxing's eyes were mesmerized, and he was very touched. His guess was right. Fang Yan had fought back. Fang Yan had fought back. If there was trouble, look for Fang Yan. Fang Yan would let you not be bothered anymore. Fang Yan tiptoed with his right foot, and leaped high into the air. He struck out with his palm and pierced through the black gauze above his head. So cool. Yi Fengxing crossed his arms in front of his chest, and there were hot tears in his eyes. Fang Yan's counterattack was so cool, and he jumped so high. Something's wrong. Yi Fengxing's chubby cheeks suddenly puffed up. This was because he realized that Fang Yan had been flying all this time. He was like a rocket that had been shot straight up into the sky. Based on his reaction and flying height, If he didn't fly up into the sky like Zhou Xingxing did, and then rush down to kill Bai Lilu with the Buddha's palm, then there was only one possibility. He ran away. F***ck, he actually ran away. Yi Fengxing's hair stood on end, and he felt like his whole body was about to explode. When Yi Fengxing realized that something was wrong, it was already impossible to turn around and run away. He gritted his teeth, and suddenly gathered his strength. He took 2 steps forward, and clenched his fist to meet Bai Lilu's punch. Too late. Bai Lilu's fist was already in front of Yi Fengxing's face. Fang Yan! Yi Fengxing roared in anger. Their fists collided. However, without any surprise, Yi Fengxing's body was like a rolling gourd as he tumbled backwards. One was prepared, and the other was a hasty response. One was ready to attack, and the other was an idiot. It was obvious that Yi Fengxing was no match for Bai Lilu. Gotcha! He knocked over a ginkgo tree in the yard, and his body fell heavily into the nursery. Fang Yan! Yi Fengxing lay on the small sapling, and cried out Fang Yan's name. Aren't we friends? Aren't we friends? Aren't we people who love each other? Why did you do this to me? Why did you jump so high? Fang Yan stood in the corner of the yard, and snatched half of the cucumber from Ye's hand. He took a bite and said, I haven't seen you for a long time, and Bai Lilu's punching skills have improved. This punch is not flashy, not frivolous, and not opportunistic. It uses strength as the bone, courage as the flesh, and one punch. Ouch! Fang Yan touched the arm that Yi had pinched, and looked at Yi angrily. He said, Didn't I just snatch half of your cucumber? Did you have to use so much strength? I was the one who brought this cucumber to you just now. Fang Yan, you still have the nerve to say that? Who wants the cucumber? Did I pinch you because of the cucumber? Yi looked at Fang Yan with disdain and said, Yi Fengxing is your good friend and brother. When he was in danger, you actually ran away? I didn't run away. Fang Yan explained. I was still watching from the side. Watching him get beaten up? Fang Yan nodded and said, Men always have to experience this day. Fang Yan smiled and chewed on the cucumber. He watched Bai Lilu rush towards Yi Fengxing, who was lying on the ground. He sat on Yi Fengxing's body and punched Yi Fengxing's face and scolded, Yi Fengxing, you bastard! Yi Fengxing held his head with both hands and shouted, Don't hit my face, don't hit my face! Help! Bai Lilu punched him again and roared angrily, Yi Fengxing, if you don't give me an explanation, I won't let you off! Bang bang! Help help! Bai Lilu seemed to have a deep hatred for Yi Fengxing. He kept punching Yi Fengxing's head, chest, and all the parts of his body that could be hit. Bai Lilu lay there, howling like a pig being slaughtered. He shouted for help and scolded Fang Yan at the same time. Fang Yan, you bastard! You're not loyal to your friends. Help! Someone help me. Fang Yan, did you give birth to a son? Mimi. Help, he's beating me to death. Fang Yan, you bastard, I'm going to cut off all ties with you. Fang Yan looked aggrieved and said to Yi, who was standing next to him, Tell me, who did I offend? It was clearly Bai Lilu who was beating him. Yi snorted, and was not willing to talk to Fang Yan at all. Is your Yi family still reasonable? Fang Yan said with a bitter smile. Bailey Qingzhu rushed over, hugged her brother's arm and cried, Brother! Brother! Don't hit him anymore, you're going to kill him. Bai Lilu wanted to hit him again, but his sister held his arm tightly and refused to let go, so he could not use too much force. Let go. Bai Lilu sighed. Brother, this has nothing to do with Fengxing, it's me. I blame myself. You're still speaking up for him? Bai Lilu wanted to punch him again. Blame me, blame me. Yi Fengxing hurriedly apologized and said, It's all my fault. Don't blame Qingzhu. I didn't blame Qingzhu at all. Bai Lilu wanted to hit him again. Brother. Bailey Qingzhu was angry. She hugged her brother's arm and said, Can't we talk nicely? Yes, yes. Talk nicely. Fang Yan walked over with a cucumber in his mouth and advised, It's not a big deal. Why do you have to get physical? Let the people outside see it as a joke. What did you say? It's not a big deal? Bai Lilu punched Yi Fengxing's head. Do you know what this fatso did? He shouldn't have done anything. Fang Yan said, He's a human, right? You. Bai Lilu's face turned green and white, and he stared at Fang Yan, and said, You know everything, and you still dare to say that it's not a big deal? It's not a big deal to begin with, Fang Yan said with a serious face. How old is your sister this year? 21. She's an adult, right? What are you trying to say? Yi Fengxing and your sister are both adults, and they have the ability to be responsible for their own actions. No matter what happened between them, that's their business. They haven't gotten married officially, and they're already. Bai Lilu sat on Yi Fengxing's fat belly, and said angrily, I know. Fang Yan nodded and said, This is Yi Fengxing's fault. What kind of man is a martial arts practitioner, if he can't even control his lower body? But now that you've beaten him up, your anger has subsided. Alright, I know, it hasn't completely subsided, but it's at least half subsided, right? So, can't we just settle the rest of the matter? If you beat him to death, then this official marriage really can't be realized. Yes. Yi Fengxing nodded repeatedly and said, I'm not an irresponsible man. Fang Yan, you bastard, I want to break off all ties with you. Even if you scold me. Fang Yan looked at Yi Fengxing and said with a face full of sincerity, I will still help you. Chapter 7:16. Even if you scold me, I will still help you. Fang Yan acted like he was doing this for Yi Fengxing's sake. Yi Fengxing blinked his big eyes and didn't know how to fight back. Bai Lilu looked at Fang Yan mockingly and sneered. Who ran so fast just now? I haven't seen you for such a long time, but your jumping ability has improved. This idiot. Yezi despised Fang Yan to the extreme. When his brother was in trouble, he bounced away like a cannonball, but his brother was beaten up like a pig's head. Such a man was too disloyal, right? And he still had the cheek to say something like, Even if you scold me, I'll still help you. Those who were not loyal always liked to say things like supremely righteous, but those who were truly righteous would never say such nonsense. He's not an idiot. Yi Ro stood behind Yezi and retorted softly. Yezi was shocked. She patted her chest and said, Sister, when did you come? I just came. Yi Ro said softly. Why don't you make any sound when you walk? You scared me to death by suddenly talking. Yezi complained. Of course he's not an idiot, he's very smart. When he saw danger coming, he ran faster than anyone else. How can such a person be an idiot? I scolded him wrongly. I should have scolded him for being a bastard. Yi Ro looked at Yezi's delicate and pretty side profile and asked, Is Fang Yan closer to Bai Lilu or Yi Fengxing? Of course it's Yi Fengxing. I used to think so, but look at him just now. He's so embarrassed. Why did Bai Lilu come to our house to find trouble with Yi Fengxing? I don't know, but it sounds like it has something to do with Bai Qingzhu. Could it be that Yi Fengxing and Bai Qingzhu have already? Yezi blushed and asked curiously. Bai Lilu came here in a fit of anger, so he naturally needs to vent his anger. Fang Yan and Yi Fengxing are close. If Fang Yan fought with him for Yi Fengxing, what would the result be? Yi Ro continued to ask. Yezi thought about it seriously and said, Do you mean that Fang Yan deliberately avoided Bai Lilu in order not to anger him? In order to not ruin Yi Fengxing and Bai Qingzhu's happy occasion, he sent his good friend Yi Fengxing out to be beaten up by Bai Lilu? Yi Wen nodded and said, That's right. Humph, I don't believe it. Yezi still couldn't believe Fang Yan's character. She said, Sister, your heart and soul have been hooked by him. He just said that cucumbers were more bitter than bitter melons. And you would definitely say that cucumbers were more bitter than bitter melons. You believe whatever he says. I think Yi Fengxing might have offended him in some way, and he bore a grudge against him. That's why he sent that idiot Yi Fengxing away. Yi Ro thought for a moment and nodded. It's possible. Yezi looked at Yi Ro helplessly and said, Sister, why did you give up so easily? What about your principles? What about your beliefs? What about your love? Yi Ro glanced at her indifferently and said, He would indeed do such a thing. Fang Yan saw that Yi Ro had arrived, but he didn't know what they were talking about. He stuffed the cucumber in his hand into his mouth, and when he spoke, there was a hint of green in his voice. He said, Get up, get up. Let's talk things out. Although Yi Fengxing is fatso, pressing him like this, what if he loses weight? Fang Yan thought that Yi Fengxing's facial features were actually very good. If he really lost weight, he would be a challenge to his position as the captain of Swallow Dock's Prince Charming team, and as the face of the team. In comparison, he quite liked being friends with Fatso. Brother. Bailey Qingzhu grabbed her brother's arm and said, "Get up." Bailey Lu hesitated for a moment. He knew that if Fang Yan didn't help and Yi Fengxing didn't fight back, he wouldn't be able to continue fighting. He climbed up from Bailey Lu's body and shook off the dust on his body. He stared fiercely at Yi Fengxing and said, "Yi Fengxing, you must give our Bailey family an explanation. You actually dared to do such a thing. Do you think our Bailey family is easy to bully?" Bailey Qingzhu ran over to help Yi Fengxing up, but she didn't succeed. Yi Fengxing was too fat. Fang Yan liked to see this kind of situation happen. He ran over happily and pulled Yi Fengxing's arm to help him up from the ground. He helped him tidy up the grass and dirt on his body and asked with concern, "Fengxing, are you okay?" "Fang Yan, I want to break off all ties with you." Yi Fengxing's expression was ferocious as he roared fiercely. "You still don't want to solve the problem?" Fang Yan asked indifferently. Yi Fengxing blinked his eyes and his fat face was full of smiles. He said, "What a joke. How can a relationship of several decades be broken just like that? How can I break off all ties with you? How many years have we known each other? I've known you since I was born. Are you really willing to help me solve my problem?" "That depends on what problem it is," Fang Yan said. "Actually, it's not a big problem," Yi Fengxing said. "How big is not a big problem?" Yi Fengxing pulled Fang Yan's sleeve to the corner of the wall and said in a low voice, "Qingzhu is pregnant." Fang Yan's expression stiffened. Then he began to rejoice that he had dodged just now. If he hadn't dodged, Bailey Lu's anger would have reached his heart. Perhaps he would still be fighting with his life now. Who asked his good brother and his sister to create a new life? "What's with your expression?" Yi Fengxing said angrily. "You also know, between men and women, it's very easy for things to go wrong. At that time, I didn't think that it would be so easy." Fang Yan composed himself and looked at Yi Fengxing's fat face. He asked very seriously, "What do you want to do?" "I haven't thought about it yet," Yi Fengxing said. "What do you mean by haven't thought about it yet?" Fang Yan said, gritting his teeth. Yi Fengxing thought for a while, then looked at Fang Yan and said, "Fang Yan, you know, I've always wanted to go out and see, whether it's the North Sea or the Gobi Desert, or go to extremely cold places. I want to go out and see while I'm still young. Swallow Dock is too small, I want to go out and see. But now that you have a child..." "I know, but I'm not ready yet. My fierce tiger fist has just become a tiger, I want to have another breakthrough." "But now that you have a child..." Yi Fengxing looked at Fang Yan and asked, "What do you think I should do?" "Get married," Fang Yan said. "Marry Bailey Qingzhu and make her your wife." Yi Fengxing opened his mouth and said, "It's not that I don't want to marry her, but..." "Since you're willing, then marry her," Fang Yan said firmly. He knew that Yi Fengxing had premarital phobia. For a young man who always laughed and played around, it was very difficult for him to make a decision when he suddenly encountered something like this. He did not have much experience in relationships, and this was his first time experiencing the life of a married couple. He thought that after marriage he would lose his freedom. He had not even thought about whether there would be any problems living with another woman. But this was his responsibility, an obligation that he had to bear. Yi Fengxing stared at Fang Yan with wide eyes. He did not understand why he was so determined. Fang Yan sighed and said, "We grew up together with Qingzhu, and I also treat her like a younger sister. You like Qingzhu in your heart, don't you?" "Yes." Yi Fengxing nodded. Regarding this, he did not hide it. "Qingzhu and you are in love with each other, and you are willing. Since this has already happened, you can't blame anyone else. However, Qingzhu is pregnant with your child, so both of you must stand up and bear the responsibility. Qingzhu has already stood up. Do you not dare to?" "Who says I don't dare? I just don't know what to do. Am I right? This is the first time you've experienced something like this, And you don't know how to handle it, right? You can't imagine your future life, so you're afraid, right? You seem to be very good at it. Don't tell me you've already been married. Don't lie to my cousin. If you lie to her, she will kill you. Of course I've never been married, Fang Yan said angrily. We're talking about you now, don't drag me into it. Also, if you don't stand up and bear the responsibility, do you think the Bailey family will let this go? Bailey Lu will kill you, Fang Yan said. Everyone in the Bailey family will want to kill you, Fang Yan said. Fang Yan's words were not an alarmist. Swallow Dock was located at the junction of the old and the new era. Although many people in the village drove luxury cars and used mobile phones and all kinds of modern home appliances, some old traditions were still preserved. Furthermore, every family valued their reputation very much. A young woman getting pregnant before marriage was considered a big deal in Swallow Dock, a very, very big deal. This was also the reason why Bailey Lu came to the Yi family to beat them up after he got the news, and until now, no one in charge of the Yi family had come out to scold him. Everyone knew that the Yi family was in the wrong, so they had to let the Bailey family calm down first. Fang Yan tidied up Yi Fengxing's clothes and said with a smile, Fengxing, you've grown up, and we've all grown up. Although we still play and joke like before, play the games we liked to play when we were young, and tell childish jokes. But there are some responsibilities that we have to bear. You have a child, and you're the father of a child. So you have to stand up, marry the woman you like, and give your child a warm home. I think this is much braver and greater than you going to the North Sea, the Gobi Desert and the Arctic. Chapter 717. Fang Yan and Yi Fengxing whispered to each other. Yi sneered and said, Fang Yan is not a good man. He will definitely persuade Yi Fengxing to leave. Yi Fengxing has always wanted to go to Huaqing with him. If uncle hadn't stopped him, fearing that he wouldn't be able to control himself after going to Huaqing, he would have run away long ago. Yi Ro looked at Fang Yan tenderly with a slight smile on her lips. Since her relationship with Fang Yan was confirmed, she didn't know why she always looked at him and thought about him. Even if she didn't say a word and just looked at him quietly, she felt extremely happy and satisfied. Hearing Yi Ro's words, Yi Ro shook her head gently and said, Fang Yan is not such a person. Sister, why are you speaking for him again? Have you forgotten? How many girls came to see him when he was in mourning in Swallow Dock? Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin don't need to be mentioned. They would come every few days. Teacher and student relationship. Which student would treat their teacher like this? And that Qin Etian. She clearly wants to compete with you. Look at her expression when she looks at Fang Yan. Look at what she has done for Fang Yan. And do you know what gift she gave him for the first time? Fang Yingxiong secretly told me that the so-called red heart black jade was priceless. It was said that a small piece could buy a courtyard house in Yanjing City. Also that black turtle ointment. The two big red dragons that the Fang family raised in the living room. Aren't they ashamed? A girl gave so many gifts for the first time. Does she want to buy a man? That's too much. The more Yi Ro said, the angrier she became. She felt more and more indignant for her sister. She said, and Xia Tian. How could he have anything to do with the big star Xia Tian? And that? Sister, I don't mean to criticize you, but you are too naive and have no experience in love. You don't know that men are very greedy when it comes to love. They want whatever they see. How can they be satisfied? So, you must never be deceived by her. The deeper the love, the deeper the scar. I won't, Yi Ro said calmly. Sister. I can feel it. Feel what? He cares about me, Yi Ro said. Just like I care about him. Yi rolled his eyes and said, Here we go again. There it was again. Are you going to tell me the story of how he risked his life to save you after you failed to climb the heavenly axiom? Why didn't he mention it when you risked your life to save him? He will keep it in his heart. Keep it in your heart. I'm just afraid that he has already forgotten. You still have to be wary of her. Those girls are too beautiful. Especially that Qin Etian. Although we look so arrogant, men are all cheap wretches. When they see such a woman, they are like a wolf that sees a bone and want to pounce on her. What was that saying again? Conquer. Men have a conquering nature in their bones. Do you think you know men very well? Yiro looked at her sister who had lived in Yanjing for a long time and asked softly. I've seen too much. Too many romantic things have happened around me. A girl in our dorm was successfully pursued by a guy. She washed and cooked for him every day, bought him clothes and shoes, and treated him like he was her own son. The two of them lived together outside, but she accidentally got pregnant. The girl wanted to call her boyfriend to discuss how to solve the problem together, but the guy's phone was turned off. She came back crying and said that she wanted to commit suicide. My dormitory sisters couldn't stand it anymore, and sent people to find the boy. Do you know where they found him? In another girl's rental house. It turned out that he had more than one girlfriend. Yiro knew there were all kinds of disgusting things happening outside. She also knew that in this era where people lost their faith, people were very presumptuous and casual about their own feelings. But she believed in herself, and was also willing to believe in Fang Yan. Ye's words were very serious, but she was not angry about it. Because only those who were stabbed in the heart and hidden pain would be really angry. She knew that Yi did it for her own good. Yi thought that she stayed in Swallow Dock all day, so she didn't know the evil of people, the fickleness of the world, and the fragility of feelings. Yiro looked at Yi and said softly, "How about we make a bet?" "Bet on what?" "Fang Yan won't take Yi Fengxing away." Yiro said, "He will persuade Yi Fengxing to take this responsibility." "Impossible?" Yiro opened her eyes wide and said, "Well, I'll bet with you. What do you want to bet?" "If you lose, go and apologize to Fang Yan," Yiro said. Yiro thought for a while and nodded. She said, "Okay, I promise you. But what if you lose?" "I apologize to you." "No, you're my sister. I don't want you to apologize for me." Yiro rolled her dark eyes and thought quickly. She said, "If you lose, you'll go shopping with me in Yanjing for a day. I can arrange the whole day. How about it?" Yiro thought for a while. Although she didn't like shopping, she still agreed. She said, "Okay. I'd like to see if Fang Yan is like what you said." "Hey, he took Yi Fengxing to see Bailey Lu." Fang Yan took Yi Fengxing and walked in front of Bailey Lu and Bailey Qingzhu. Bailey Lu frowned and said, "Fang Yan, what are you two whispering about? This matter needs to be resolved by the elders of the Yi family. Can you handle it on behalf of the Yi family?" Fang Yan smiled and waved his hand. He said, "This matter doesn't need to be resolved by some elder. It needs to be discussed and decided by the two parties involved." Fang Yan looked at Bailey Qingzhu and said, "Qingzhu's meaning is already very clear. As brothers, we can also do it." Bailey Qingzhu blushed. She also felt that she had lost face after such a thing happened. The elders of the family still didn't know, but her brother, who had just returned from outside, understood the details. Her brother's personality was insolent. Once he heard of this, he flew into a rage and ran to the Yi family to seek justice for her. Bailey Qingzhu was almost angered to death by her brother's idiocy. With such a ruckus, wouldn't the elders of the two families know? Bailey Lu looked at his sister and said, "What do you mean? You want to say that my sister must marry Yi Fengxing no matter what?" No. Yi Fengxing hurriedly explained. He looked sincerely at Bailey Qingzhu and said, "It's me who must marry her no matter what." Yi Fengxing knelt on one knee and looked into Bailey Qingzhu's eyes. He said, "Little Zhu, you know my feelings for you. I also understand your feelings for me. To be honest, I wasn't prepared for such a thing to happen. I always felt that I was still a child. Why did I suddenly have a child? After I heard the news, I didn't know what to do. I even hid and didn't dare to pick up your call. I'm a bastard, I deserve to die. I know you must have been very sad at that time. I've let you down. I also felt very sad in my heart. I felt that no matter what, as a man, I should have stood up at that time, hugged you and said it's okay. We'll bear this together. But at that time I didn't do it, and I didn't do it well. I've always wanted to go out and have a look. I've always wanted to go out and explore. I've always wanted to train our Yi family's ferocious tiger fist to the middle stage of tiger. I've always felt that there are still many things that I haven't done. I've always thought that I still have a very, very long time, but you suddenly told me that we have a child. We're going to get married." Yi Fengxing's eyes reddened. He reached out and held Bailey Qingzhu's small hand tightly. He said, "Even now I'm still not prepared, but I'm willing to bear it with you. I want to marry you. I want to make you my wife. I want to raise this child with you." Just now, Fang Yan told me that to stand up and marry the woman you like, to give your child a warm home, is much braver than going to the North Sea, the Gobi Desert, or the extremely cold land, and much more noble. I don't care if it's brave or not, and I don't care if it's noble or not, I just want to do it. Because this is what I think in my heart. I want to marry you. I want to make you my wife. I want to be the child's father. The muscles on Fang Yan's face twitched again and again. This bastard. How can you change your lines so casually? Although the effect is better after you changed it, but have you ever thought about my feelings? Stepping on your friend's shoulders to show off your own greatness. Is this really a man's way of doing things? Please open your eyes and look. Your cousin's future wife, Yi Ro, is standing at the side and watching. Fengsheng. Bailey Qingzhu was tricked as expected. She threw herself into Yi Fengsheng's strong embrace. Yi Fengsheng fumbled in his clothes for a while, and finally took out a piece of Mithriya Buddha jade from his neck. He said, "Men wear guanyin, women wear Buddha. When I was young, my body was very weak, so my ancestor gave me this jade to keep me safe. This is the only valuable thing I have on me. I'll give it to you as my proposal gift." Yi Fengsheng pushed Bailey Qingzhu away, looked at her eyes that were red from crying, and asked, "Qingzhu, are you willing to marry me?" "I am willing." Bailey Qingzhu's tears flowed down in large droplets. As she wiped her tears, she nodded continuously. Thus, Yi Fengsheng put the piece of jade in his hand on Bailey Qingzhu's neck, and then forcefully pulled her back into his embrace. Qingzhu. Fengsheng. Just like in the movies, after the male and female leads called each other's names, they hugged each other even more tightly. The rims of Fang Yan's eyes were also red. He walked in front of Yi Ro, reached out and hugged her, saying, "I'm so touched, I'm about to cry." Chapter 7:18. Yi Ro was too serious, so Fang Yan was always too frivolous. Yi Ro was cold and indifferent. She was quite shy in her bones. It was impossible for her to take the initiative to express her affection to a man. However, a couple should take the initiative. Therefore, Fang Yan took the role of the main attacker. Yi Ro didn't care about Fang Yan at all. Otherwise, life would be so boring if they both stood there like two unrelated tree stumps. Fang Yan leaned his head on Yi Ro's shoulder and smelled the fresh fragrance from Yi Ro's neck. Yi Ro was very tall and looked thin, but her body was quite plump. Her waist was slender, and her chest was full. Every part of her body was extremely well proportioned and beautiful. Fang Yan hugged Yi Ro's body with both hands and said emotionally, "Yi Fengsheng is already a father, but I, as his big brother, am still a virgin. The most important thing in the martial world is face. Am I very shameless now?" Yi Ro nodded and said, "Yes." "I don't want to either." Fang Yan sighed and said, "I'm getting older and older, and my family is starting to urge me." "You want to marry me? Well, why are you asking so directly?" "If you want to marry me, I will marry you," Yi Ro said with a serious face. "Ha ha ha, that's great. I'll go back and prepare now." Fang Yan thought Yi Ro was so cute. How could he not marry such a lovely Yi Ro? And he wanted to marry her now, as soon as possible. Yi sneered and said, "He wants to marry me, but he needs the consent of our family. Uncle and the others will definitely not agree. Even if the ancestors help you, it will be useless." Yi Ro glanced at Yi and said, "They will agree." Yi Ro didn't say what would happen if they didn't agree. She just said with certainty, "They will agree." Fang Yan held Yi Ro's hand tightly and said with a smile, "I will definitely marry you. And you also want to marry me by all means. What else in the world can separate us?" "Mistress," Yi quickly added. Yi. Fang Yan stared at Yi with his teeth clenched. A girl changes 18 times between womanhood and womanhood. The more she changes, the more annoying she becomes. He remembered that she used to support his relationship with Yi Ro. When they met in the village several times, she was very polite to him. When she saw him walking with Yi Ro, she would also tease him with a cheeky smile. Is this girl having a bad sex life recently? Yezi. Yi Ro knew that Yezi was trying to defend her, but what she knew was not a big deal. Have you forgotten our bet just now? Yezi puffed up her cheeks like a goldfish and stared at Fang Yan without blinking. After a long time she said with difficulty, I'm sorry. After that, he turned around and ran into the courtyard. Bet. Fang Yan looked at Yi Ro in confusion and asked, What did you bet? I said you would definitely persuade Yi Fengsheng to take responsibility. How did you know? Because you are such a person. Yi Ro looked at Fang Yan with pity in her eyes. Otherwise, how could you be so tired? Fang Yan could only hold Yi Ro tighter. This woman's figure was really good. Fang Yan. A stern shout came. Yi Dawen came out of the backyard and saw the guy holding his daughter. His eyes began to burn with murderous intent. He didn't want to blame his baby daughter. It was just that Fang Yan, the bastard, was touching her. The elders of the Yi family didn't come out before because they knew that the Bailey family was angry. It was good to let them vent in the yard. What made them even more embarrassed was that Bailey Lu came to them with his pregnant sister, but Yi Fengsheng, the bastard, didn't dare to show up. If the person involved didn't come out, how could they explain it to others? He also wanted to test Yi Fengsheng. If he only ran away when he encountered this kind of thing, then his future would be nothing more than this. Now that the battle was over and Xiaomei reported that the matter had been solved perfectly, Yi Dawen had to stand up and speak. No matter how well Fang Yan solved it, he was just a junior of the same age as Yi Fengsheng. He was not even a member of the Yi family. It was better to get the approval and blessing of the elders for the marriage of the younger generation. Yi Dawen was thinking about how to handle this matter beautifully. He was in the limelight, and he couldn't let the Bailey family have a grudge. After all, the two families would be considered in-laws in the future. He didn't expect to see such an unsightly scene as soon as he stepped out of the yard. If Fang Yan was holding another girl, Yi Dawen would just think that Fang Yan was a loose and frivolous person. However, the girl in his arms was his daughter, which made Yi Dawen feel particularly offended when he looked over. Fang Yan quickly let go of his left arm, but his right arm stayed behind Yi Ro's waist and gently massaged it. He said with a face full of concern, How do you feel now? In the future, you must pay attention to the fact that your body hasn't fully recovered, and you can't do too intense exercise. Now is not the time for you to rush to practice. Much better, Yi Ro said expressionlessly. She didn't have many expressions on her face. Fang Yan had set up the stage, and she only needed to say a few lines. I used our Fang family's 3 parts 5 mountains hand, which is a kind of treatment method that perfectly combines the qi of Tai Chi with the human body's acupuncture points. You know, Tai Chi belongs to Taoism. Since ancient times, medicine and Taoism have been inseparable. When it comes to taking elixirs to nourish the body, we are better at it. Yi Ro nodded again. Being seen by her father hugging a man, she was really a little embarrassed as a daughter. After all, she was a child from Swallow Dock, and her mind was not so open. It was said that when many young couples made love in the room, their parents would take the initiative to give them condoms for fear of accidents. Poor parents in the world. Fang Yan, what are you doing? Yi Dawen shouted. He was tall, and he came in a fit of anger. He looked fierce and majestic. Massage. Fang Yan explained seriously and said, Ruru was seriously injured last time, and her body won't recover in a short time. She can't do strenuous exercise, and she can't practice martial arts. You have to keep an eye on her. Don't underestimate these sprains. They may develop into hidden dangers in the future. But uncle, don't worry. I used our family's 3 parts 5 mountains hand to push away the blood clots in her body and let the moisture out. She will be fine soon. Yi Dawen stared at Fang Yan with sharp eyes. He naturally didn't believe Fang Yan's nonsense, but he couldn't expose his nonsense. As a father, did he have to check whether his daughter's waist was injured or not? Under Yi Dawen's gaze, Fang Yan finally finished the healthcare treatment in his hand. He clapped his hands and said, Well, go back and lie down. If there is nothing important, try not to walk around these 2 days. Only then did Fang Yan turn his eyes to Yi Dawen's face. He said with a smile, Uncle, are you here to deal with the matter of Fengshen? Congratulations, the Yi family is going to have another child. Yi Dawen's eyes were cold. No one knew what he was thinking. After a long time, he turned around and walked in the direction of Bai Lilu and Yi Fengshen. Fengshen is too young. He did something that caught everyone off guard. This is the fault of our Yi family after all. We will also bear this responsibility. Yi Dawen looked at Bai Lilu and said such words. However, marriage can't be taken lightly. I will personally bring Fengshen to the Bai family to propose marriage. I also need to discuss the details of the wedding with the elders of your family. Bai Lilu knew Yi Dawen's position in the Yi family. Among the 3 tigers of the Yi family, his position was not the highest, and his martial arts was not the best. However, he was the well-deserved master of the Yi family. He also made decisions on some matters, big or small. He came to say such words to him, and even had the intention of apologizing. Thus, Bai Lilu could not wantonly ridicule him. Uncle is right. Marriage matters should be decided by the elders of the 2 families. As an older brother, I can only help my younger sister vent her anger. Bai Lilu glanced at Yi Fengshen and Bai Li Qingzhu, who were still hugging each other and unwilling to separate. He said, I also did some rash things. I hope that uncle will not take it to heart. Yi Dawen smiled and said, what you did was right. If you didn't do it, I would have beaten that brat up. How could I allow him to escape and shrink back from this kind of thing? After talking for a while, Bai Lilu bid farewell to Yi Dawen. Yi Fengshen, come in here. Wen Wan, you come with me. Yi Dawen shouted as he left. Yi Wen looked at Fang Yan. Fang Yan smiled and patted her shoulder. He said, go, I also have something to do. Yi Wen nodded and followed behind her father to the backyard. Fang Yan sighed powerlessly and lifted his feet to walk out of the Yi family's house. Fang Yan! Bai Lilu shouted. Fang Yan turned around and looked at Bai Lilu, who had left the Yi family a step earlier, but had now appeared behind him. He said, what's the matter? If you want to laugh at me, I advise you to bear with it. Otherwise I will be very angry. You killed Bai Xiao? Bai Lilu stared coldly at Fang Yan and asked. Fang Yan looked at Bai Lilu thoughtfully and said, it looks like you don't have a good relationship with that scum Bai Xiao. What? You want to seek revenge for him? I want to seek revenge for him. Bai Lilu shouted coldly. Do you dare to have a good fight with me? Chapter 719. Yi Dawen turned around and said to Yi Fengshen, Yi Fengshen, go to the great ancestor with Qingzhu. The great ancestor wants to talk to you. Okay. Yi Fengshen agreed, but his eyes looked at Yi Rou. He was not stupid. He knew that his uncle wanted to talk to Yi Rou, and it should be about her and Fang Yan. He knew Yi Dawen's attitude, and even the attitude of the whole Yi family. But why? Why couldn't my cousin and Fang Yan be together? Yi Dawen instructed, and then he walked towards his study. He didn't ask Yi Rou to go back, so Yi Rou could only follow him into the study. While Bai Lilu was making trouble outside, Yi Dawen was probably reading in the study. When he came back again, the tea in the cup was still steaming, and an ancient book was open on the table. Yi Rou glanced at the title of the book, Notes on Kung Fu of the Southern School. Yi Dawen walked to the windowsill and opened the window. Looking at the gloomy sky outside, he said, I'm afraid it's going to rain again. Yi Rou didn't say anything. She went straight to the bookshelf, took out a book, and casually flipped through it. Yi Dawen held the teacup and took a sip of tea. He looked at his daughter in front of him with a headache. There were thousands of words in his heart, but he didn't know how to say them. They had their own position, and they had to protect the Yi family's position. However, Yi Rou was obviously different from what they thought. She was a girl, and she had a man she liked. She was going to marry him, and as a father he should give her his blessing. The sad thing was that he couldn't let her walk on that path. He had thought about this problem countless times in his heart. The 3 brothers had gathered together and discussed their opinions. The decision had been made a long time ago, but they had never had a good talk with Yi Rou. At that time, they all felt that this matter was not urgent, or they hadn't found a more suitable opportunity. But now they had to talk about it. When he walked out just now, he saw Fang Yan holding his daughter in front of others. With Yi Rou's character, she didn't refuse to push Fang Yan away. Yi Dawen knew that it was a little too late. While Yi Dawen was still deliberating over his words, Yi Rou had already spoken first, saying, "You can find a reason to convince me." Yi Dawen stared blankly for a moment before drinking another mouthful of fragrant tea. Originally, this top-grade dragon tongue orchid was fragrant, but now he felt that there was a bitter taste in his mouth. He must be feeling bitter, right? With this in mind, Yi Dawen said, "It's impossible for you and Fang Yan." "Reason," Yi Rou said. Her eyes were still on the book in her hand, and her voice was very calm. There was no sign of agitation or anger. She seemed to be saying, "Give me a reason. As long as you give me a reason, I will be convinced." However, Yi Dawen knew that it was difficult to convince his daughter. His train of thought was interrupted by his daughter's sudden words. Yi Dawen could only reorganize his words and say, "Although you failed to climb the heavenly law this time, you're still young. You're the child with the best aptitude in our Yi family. As long as you don't give up, conquering the heavenly law is only a matter of time. Next year? Or the year after? At that time, our Yi family will have a heavenly law expert. Do you know how many years we've been waiting for this? We often say, it's difficult to enter the path of the divine fist. The Bailey family has practiced the fist for generations, but they've never been able to enter the path. We've waited for so many years and hoped for so many years, but there's not a single heavenly law expert. What about our Yi family? Our Yi family's hope is on you, and our Yi family's honor is also on you. The Yi family has a heavenly law expert, and the Yi family once had a heavenly law expert. Others might say that many years ago, the Yi family also had a heavenly law expert. In the end, there was a heavenly law expert. The Yi family needs you, needs this honor, and needs this history. Which of these families who practice martial arts doesn't want to have a heavenly law expert? Just like those scholarly families in ancient times, which family doesn't want their own family to have a scholar? I also know that I'm being too selfish by saying this. As a parent, who doesn't want their children to live well and be happy? However, in my position, I have to consider the interests and reputation of the entire family. It's not just me, but also your grandfathers and uncles. Yi Rou finally raised her head. Her expression was still calm, but there was a hint of mockery in her tone. She looked at her father and said, "Is it because I'm too outstanding?" "I've said it before. You've always been the most outstanding," Yi Dawen said. On this point, he was also very proud of his daughter. "Because I'm too outstanding, I can't get married and can't leave the Yi family? You can also get married. We've also discussed it. We can find a husband for you. You're outstanding in all aspects, and there are countless young talents who want to enter our Yi family. Your second and third uncles are also looking for someone outside for you. Whether it's from the government department or the military department, you have to find someone who can match you in all aspects. It's okay if you don't match up. As a husband and wife, one has to be strong while the other is weak. If both of them are too strong, it's not good for family harmony. Look for." Yi Rou squinted her eyes and smiled. She said, "Look for. Huh. Can one's own husband be looked for? The past is not the past. Even now in Swallow Dock, there are many couples who have never met before getting married, and they live very well afterward. But I already have someone I like," Yi Rou said aloud. "That's why I wanted to talk to you. I should have talked to you a long time ago. At that time, I thought that everyone also thought that young people's relationships were not very stable. Maybe they would break up after talking for a while. Now you think we won't break up? I do feel that way. Unfortunately, you couldn't convince me," Yi Rou said. She closed the book in her hand and prepared to leave. Yi Rou stopped and turned to look at her father. She knew that he was also in a difficult position. She also understood his difficulties, but she still said firmly, "You didn't convince me. Fang Yan is not a good match." Yi Dawen said, "Because he's not outstanding enough?" "No, because he's too outstanding." Yi Dawen said, "He's too outstanding and too ambitious. We can't control him, and we might even be controlled by him. We're still alive, and your second uncle and third uncle are also here. We can suppress him. If we're not here, and we're all old, do you think there's anyone in the next generation of the Yi family who can suppress him? Isn't that good? If we can't suppress him, then let him become one of us. Let him become one of our family. Isn't that good? Haven't we discussed this matter already? Your second uncle has talked to him in front of everyone. If he's willing to marry into the Yi family, and if the children you have are willing to have the surname Yi, we will not object to your marriage. We will even raise our hands in approval. But he refused. He's not willing. Ro, the Yi family's expectations of you are too high. Everyone is waiting for you to climb the heavenly Tao. If you succeed, you'll be our Yi family's heavenly Tao expert. If you marry into the Fong family, you'll become the Fong family's heavenly Tao expert. At that time, will there still be people who will say, "Oh, Yi Ro, that's the Yi family's heavenly Tao expert"? Will there be people who think that? But I failed. But one day you'll succeed. What if I can't succeed in my entire life? Yi Dawen used his palm to rub the rim of the teacup. He sighed softly and said, Ro, you're sulking like this. I know you have grievances in your heart. Saying these things to you makes me feel bad. But you're still the Yi family's bloodline. You have to think of yourself as a part of the Yi family. If I marry into the Fong family, then I'm no longer a member of the Yi family? Yes, of course. But you're even more of a member of the Fong family. Yi Dawen clenched the rim of his teacup tightly and said, If, and I'm saying if, a conflict occurs between the Yi family and the Fong family, which side will you stand on? You see, you're also in a difficult position, right? I'll try my best to avoid this kind of thing from happening. It's too difficult. The Yi family has to charge forward, and the Fong family is the same. Just look at what Fong Yan has done. Yi Dawen sighed and said, If you weren't so outstanding, this matter would be very easy to handle. If Fong Yan wasn't so outstanding, this matter would be easy to handle. The key is that the two of you are too outstanding, you know? The teacher wants Fong Yan to be the teacher. He wants Fong Yan to take over his position and become the next teacher of Swallow Dock. Yi Ro thought for a moment and chuckled. She said, So you think he took your position? I know you also want to be a teacher, so you don't agree to our marriage? It's not that I want to be a teacher. It's that the Yi family needs this teacher. Yi Dawen put down his teacup and rubbed his forehead with some pain. He said, You're my daughter. You're also very smart. There are some things I won't hide from you. Your second uncle is in politics and your third uncle is in the military. I've waited in Swallow Dock for so many years just for this position. I'm waiting for the teacher to retire or grow old. I'm waiting for this position. Could it be that you think I'm inferior to Fong Yan? Inferior to that young fellow? No one can deny that I'm the most suitable person for that position. I've also always been preparing for that position. I've been preparing for so long. I've been preparing for so many years. Perhaps I'm the same age as you. Yi Dawen's voice contained a sense of dignity and dominance. He said in a heavy voice, But he wants to suppress me. That old fellow wants to suppress me. He wants to suppress our Yi family's Fong Yan. Fong Yan has become his accomplice. Chapter 720. The sky was gray, and dark clouds were rolling. It was as if a huge cloth was about to cover the sky. The wind had stopped, but the rain arrows that could pierce through the darkness didn't fall in time. She felt like she was surrounded by a dome, and it was so oppressive that she couldn't breathe. Although the windows were open, the room still made her feel restless. She had the urge and desire to walk out of the room, to the yard, and into the rain. It would be best if there was a heavy rain. Yi Ro stood at the door and thought for a long time. She said, If Fong Yan can become a teacher of Swallow Dock, I'll be happy. Ro. Yi Dawen shouted. Between him and Fong Yan, his daughter was supporting another man. It made him very uncomfortable as a father. Yi Ro wasn't overwhelmed by her father's aura. She still looked calm. She sighed softly. This choice made her feel very uncomfortable. It's not that Fong Yan is more important than you. You're my father. You gave me everything I have. In my heart, no one is more important than you. Yi Ro said softly, as if she was explaining something. But Fang Yan is indeed more suitable than you. He's capable, intelligent, and selfless. Or rather, he doesn't have too much selfishness. He wants Swallowdock to be Swallowdock. He respects it, and doesn't want to use it to achieve his own achievements and ambitions. That's because he hasn't reached that position yet. When he becomes a teacher of Swallowdock, when he has enough power, his ambition will be greater than anyone else's. He won't be able to suppress it. Anyone in that position would have done the same thing. What about a teacher? A teacher is still a teacher. A former teacher is still a teacher. What makes you think I can't be a teacher? What makes you think I can't be a teacher like Long Qianxiang? Because you want too much. What about Fang Yan? His thoughts are more complicated, and his methods are more ruthless. But he's a good person, Yi Rou said softly. Even if he wants something, he'll do it in a righteous way. He won't hurt those innocent people. It's just a one-sided story. Also, Yu Wenrou turned around and looked at Yi Daowen's face that was dark from anger. She said, "You said that you waited for many years. You said that you stayed in Swallowdock for the position of teacher. What if Bai Xiu was still alive? If Bai Xiu was still alive, how would you treat him?" "Impudent!" Yi Daowen shouted in a stern voice. "There are many smart people in this world," Yi Rou said fearlessly. Her voice was still soft, as if she was worried that someone outside would hear her. "You're not the smartest person and neither am I." Yi Rou sighed again, opened the door and walked out. Boom! A loud clap of thunder came from the distant horizon. Lightning streaked across the sky, lighting up Yi Wen's beautiful face. Her expression was calm, but her eyes were turbulent. She walked to the courtyard and stood in the small courtyard, looking up at the dark sky. Walala! The torrential rain poured down on her face and body. Yi Rou stretched out her hand. The raindrops fell on her palm and splashed away. She enjoyed this moment of comfort and coolness very much. It was as if all the hair on her body had opened up. She knew that only the rain arrows could tear apart the endless darkness and boredom. Clang! Fang Yan's body was smashed heavily against the blue stone wall. His back was burning with pain, and all the bones in his body were about to break. His body slid down the smooth wall. Before he could slide to the ground, Bai Lilu had already rushed over and punched Fang Yan's chest. Swish! The fist passed through the rainforest, and countless raindrops were sent flying. The flying raindrops became indestructible bead arrows. The beads hit the wall and made a pa-pa sound. Then, they exploded and turned into countless denser and finer raindrops. Many raindrops fell on Fang Yan's body, but this kind of injury was meaningless to him. If he was an ordinary person, his chest and stomach might be red and purple, but for Fang Yan, it was nothing more than scratching an itch through his boots. Fang Yan's body was tense, and his back was tightly pressed against the stone wall, as if he was going to squeeze the stone wall until it burst. When his body was ready, he shouted, and his legs suddenly sprang up. He punched toward Bai Lilu's fist. Their fists collided and then collided again, and again. Bai Lilu's godly fist was invincible. He had extremely high attainments in fists, and his strength was strong and fierce. Every punch had the power to split mountains and split stones. Although Fang Yan majored in Tai Chi, he did not use the softness of Tai Chi to overcome the hardness. Instead, he used force to meet force with force. Therefore, when their fists collided, the burst of strength was particularly shocking. Bang! Bang! Both of their bodies leaped into the air, and after a quick 7 punches and 12 kicks, their bodies began to fall. In the process of falling, the two of them were still entangled, and did not separate. Bai Lilu punched toward Fang Yan's face, but Fang Yan turned his fist into a claw and grabbed Bai Lilu's wrist. Bai Lilu waved his fist to dodge, and Fang Yan buckled again. Bai Lilu dodged again, and Fang Yan buckled again. The two of them fought dozens of times in a row, and finally, Fang Yan seized the opportunity. As long as his claws touched Bai Lilu's skin, Bai Lilu could not escape. Fang Yan's body directly hit Bai Lilu's chest, and then with a shoulder, Bai Lilu's body flew out. Bang! Bai Lilu's body fell on the bluestone floor, and then he slid all the way back. The rainwater gathered on the ground was cut by his body, and it flowed in front and on both sides. Crack! Bai Lilu punched out, and a big hole was smashed on the bluestone floor by him. Half of his arm went into the hole. With his arm as the center, he turned his body 360 degrees in 2 circles, and only then did he completely remove Fang Yan's rhinoceros hit. With a punch, he stood up again. Walala! The rainwater poured down, and Fang Yan and Bai Lilu's faces and bodies were all wet. Blood oozed out of Bai Lilu's face, and it was instantly washed away by the rainwater on his face. When it oozed out again, it was washed away again. Therefore, it looked like his face was clean, and there were no wounds. Fang Yan grinned and said, "Do you still want to fight?" "I just warmed up. How can I not fight? Your face is broken." Fang Yan pointed to the wound on his face and said, "Cut the crap." Pa. Bai Lilu's shoes stepped on the floor, and the rainwater on the ground was pushed away by his powerful inner force. Then his body rushed straight in the direction of Fang Yan. While sprinting, his right hand clenched into a fist. His fist faintly glowed with blue light, and the wet back of his hand instantly became dry. The rain was still light, but the pervasive raindrops splashed everywhere when they fell around his fist. Even more raindrops didn't have a chance to fly out, and as soon as they came into contact with the blue light, they immediately melted into transparent gas. He was like a fierce horse, and his fist energy was everywhere. Heh! Bai Lilu snorted and punched at Fang Yan's chest. This was a straight punch, and it was also a fair and square punch. He came straight at Fang Yan, and his punch was aimed at the important part of Fang Yan's body, which was also the part that must be saved. Star-shattering fist was the most powerful punch in the Bailey family's divine fist, and it was also the most difficult punch to practice. Fang Yan had heard from Bai Lilu that when the star-shattering fist was used, the entire arm would turn green. This was because all the energy in the body was gathered in that arm. A person's body might not be able to withstand the boundless energy and explode. However, the people of the Bailey family practiced skin and bones since they were young, and their bodies were extremely strong. Only their tyrannical and strong bodies could withstand such a method of exertion of strength qi. Bai Lilu had actually learned the star-shattering fist? Soon Fang Yan shook his head. Bai Lilu's fist only glowed with blue light, but not the whole fist had turned blue. Moreover, the star-shattering fist not only made the fist turn blue, but also the whole arm and even the face would turn blue. Bai Lilu should have only touched the surface of the star-shattering fist, and it would take a long time for him to really master it. However, at his age he was already considered a genius. Perhaps the curse of the divine fist being difficult to enter the path would be broken by him. Fang Yan did not dodge. He bent his body slightly, stretched out his hands, and waved them in the rain. His left foot was the center, and his right foot was drawing a circle in the rain. His hands waved faster and faster, and the rain from the sky was slapped away by his sleeves and palms. By the time his body turned into an illusory shadow, not a single drop of rain could fall on his body. His body became a transparent state of vacuum. Not a feather could fall, not a leaf could be added. Those who could practice to this level could already be called Grandmaster of Tai Chi. When Fang Yan waved Tai Chi, even the heavy rain could not fall on him. He was simply a monster that everyone feared. Bai Lilu sprinted in the rain, and his fist was getting closer and closer to Fang Yan's chest. In the process of running, the color of Bai Lilu's fist became darker, and the green light gradually converged, slowly shrinking into his flesh. Star-shattering fist. This was the real star-shattering fist. I've been tricked. Fang Yan was shocked. Bai Lilu, this bastard, actually hid his strength at this critical moment. He wanted to give Fang Yan a fatal blow at this moment. Pa! Bai Lilu punched Fang Yan's chest, and Fang Yan's body flew out. Chapter 721. The 100 Miles Godly Fist used bravery as its bones and strength as its flesh. It was brave and unyielding when fighting with others, fearless. In the past, when Fang Yan and Bai Lilu fought, they were fighting to the death. It looked like they were fighting with their lives on the line. Neither of them would hold back. Fang Yan never thought that Bai Lilu would learn the star-shattering fist after not seeing him for a while. Fang Yan never thought that Bai Lilu would learn to hide his strength during the fight. Was this the Bai Lilu he knew? Was this the Bai Lilu family's man? Pfft. Fang Yan despised him in his heart. Bai Lilu's punch was unstoppable. Before the punch arrived, the chi came first. Fang Yan's body bent and flew backward, as if he had been struck by a powerful force and collided with a powerful force. Bai Lilu's body was still in the charging position. His body was still flying in the air, and his fist was still in the forward position. On the surface, it seemed that Bai Lilu had a big advantage. Fang Yan was sent flying by his punch. But Bai Lilu knew that this guy was using Tai Chi's drunken crane riding the wind to reduce his strength. When he punched, it was like hitting a pile of cotton wool. The more strength he exerted, the faster the cotton wadding retreated. But could a stone hurt the cotton wool? That was obviously impossible. Drunken crane riding the wind, what a hateful movement. Bai Lilu thought angrily. He thought of the Fang family's genius martial artist, Mo Qingdi. When he was at his peak, his tendons were cut off by the dragon god and he fell to rock bottom. He lived on wine and sleep every day. But at that time, he created this desireless movement technique, drunken crane riding the wind. Everyone knew that he went to the cold land to look for the ice dragon's bloodline. Many people were suspicious and sympathetic of this behavior. Ice dragon? That was a legendary monster. How was it possible to find it? They knew that Mo Qingdi might never come back. A prodigy of a generation had fallen from grace just like that. People couldn't help but sigh in regret. When Mo Xiaodi was at his peak, Bai Lilu's target had always been him. He had thought that one day, he would be able to fight against such a master. But now, it seemed that he would never have the chance again. Logically speaking, Bai Lilu's punch, which had been accumulating power for a long time, should have missed, because he didn't even touch Fang Yan's body. However, he did not give up. He did not even change his move. His body flew even faster, drenched in the torrential rain and facing the cold wind. His entire palm had turned green. Although the green color was faint, it proved that he had comprehended the star-shattering fist for some time. Fang Yan retreated and rushed forward. When the force of the leap was exhausted, Fang Yan's body began to fall, and so did Bai Lilu's body. As soon as Fang Yan's toes touched the ground, Bai Lilu charged towards Fang Yan's face in a condescending manner. *Pa*. The fist incinerated the rainwater and smashed towards Fang Yan's head. Fang Yan's feet were like a pair of ice skates gliding on the water, and Bai Lilu's body was also chasing after him. The whistling of the wind, the pitter-patter of the rainwater, and the heavy breathing of people mingled together. Fang Yan retreated with drunken crane riding the wind in order to reduce the force of Bai Lilu's punch. Now Fang Yan realized that this idea was too idealistic. Bai Lilu's star-shattering fist was ready but not released. Until now, the majestic force was still gathered on his fist and arm. In other words, if Fang Yan did not fight with him, his punch would always be a huge threat to Fang Yan. Fang Yan raised his hands and used the hands supporting the sky move. Bai Lilu threw out a punch and smashed it towards his palm. Bang! The fist and palm collided, making a crisp sound of impact. Kacha Fang Yan's feet sank, and both of his legs stepped into the bluestone floor at the same time, all the way to his knees. The cracks on the stone floor were still extending outwards, and the sound of stones cracking could be heard in the surroundings. Kacha! Bai Lilu punched, but he did not stop there. With the help of the rebound force, his body leaped into the air, and then he landed again. Once again he clenched his fist and punched towards Fang Yan's head. Fang Yan raised his hand again to block. Bang! The fist and palm collided again. Kacha Fang Yan's legs continued to sink. Bai Lilu's body rebounded into the air again, and he once again swung his star-shattering fist from above. Kacha! Fang Yan's body was like a wooden stake, being hit by a huge hammer again and again into the depths of the ground. Fang Yan's body sank, and both of his legs were almost completely submerged in the bluestone. He could feel the sharp stone fragments cutting his little brother between his legs. Bai Lilu's body flew into the air again. Then he clenched his fists, and with strong winds and heavy rain, he rushed towards Fang Yan. This was the last blow. It was also a fatal blow. Walala! His body fused with the torrential storm, like a blurry shadow, a bolt of lightning that was full of lethality. Bang! Bai Lilu punched again. Fang Yan raised his face, letting the bean-sized raindrops hit his cheeks, eyebrows, and eyes. The sky was gray, and covered by the curtain of rain. He could not see Bailey Lu's figure and expression at all. However, he could clearly see his fist, his cyan fist, which contained a violent power, was swung forward. "Go to hell!" Bailey Lu roared. "Go to hell!" Fang Yan also roared at the same time. This time he did not use his hands to hold up the sky, but when Bailey Lu's fist was about to hit his head, he clenched his right fist and punched out. Bang! Bailey Lu's body was like a rocket that was launched, flying towards the boundless sky at a speed that was 10 times faster than when he came. Puffed! Fang Yan spat out a mouthful of blood, and his body fell weakly to the ground. The rain was a little lighter, and it pattered on this seemingly fresh world. The edges of the roof tiles were washed clean, and the leaves were bright. The dozen or so large vats in the courtyard had already been filled with rainwater. The raindrops that fell into the vats only caused ripples in the water. Bailey Lu only felt sweetness in his throat, and quickly drank a mouthful of strong alcohol. He did not expect that the strong smell of alcohol did not wash away the vomit, but choked it out. Puffed! Bailey Lu spat out a mouthful of blood, which was filled with the smell of alcohol. This was the third time he spat out blood. Fang Yan did not even look at him. He lay on the old rattan chair under the eaves, drinking, and his eyes were fixed on the ripples in the big vats. The courtyard belonged to the old drunkard, and the rattan chair was naturally the old drunkard's rattan chair. Of course, the alcohol they were drinking was also the alcohol brewed by the old drunkard. The old drunkard was moved by the fact that Qianyabing died in the small courtyard, and broke all the wine vats in his courtyard. On the day when Fang Yixing died tragically and returned to the village, the old drunkard brewed a few vats of shadaozi for himself. Before he finished those vats of shadaozi, he went to the extremely cold place. Therefore, shadaozi became Fang Yan shadaozi. What exactly happened? Bailey Lu stared at Fang Yan with a face full of unwillingness, and said, "I felt that you did not use the heart of Tai Chi. Did it become a dead fetus again? Without the heart of Tai Chi, how could your punch send me flying? What kind of kung fu did you use?" It was not the first time they had fought. Bailey Lu knew Fang Yan's strengths and weaknesses, and Fang Yan also knew Bailey Lu's limits. However, he could not understand the way he fought today, or the punch he threw out to counterattack. He used the star-breaking fist, the most powerful star-breaking fist among the 100 miles godly fists. Even this move could not subdue Fang Yan, and it could not even subdue Fang Yan, who had lost the heart of Tai Chi, the Bailey family's godly fist. Was it still a godly fist? Could it be that he had been deceived by his family? "You deserve it." Fang Yan glanced at him, and said with a sneer. He did not bother to explain too much to him. The current Bailey Lu was not at the same level as him at all. If he wanted to fight in the future, he would fight his father or his grandfather. As for Bailey Lu himself, he was too inexperienced. Bailey Lu smiled bitterly and said, "You don't really think I'm here to avenge Bai Xiao, do you? Ever since I was a child, I've always disliked that guy. He's a wild child from the outside. Just because he's with Master, he thinks he's some big shot? If you hadn't killed him first, I would have come to him and taught him a lesson on how to be a man. Then why didn't you do it earlier?" Fang Yan said mockingly. At that time, the star-breaking fist hadn't been mastered, right? Bailey Lu was a little embarrassed. He drank another mouthful of liquor and said, "Bai Xiao, is he really dead?" "Dead," Fang Yan said straightforwardly. "It's good that he's dead." Bailey Lu sighed softly. "Although I used to think he was annoying, I didn't expect him to be so vicious. Such a guy actually appeared in our Swallow Fort. Master." In the end, Bailey Lu did not go too deep on the topic of Master. He looked at Fang Yan and said, "I heard that you came back to force the emperor to abdicate." "It's not really to force the emperor to abdicate. I just want to find an answer," Fang Yan said. "Have you found the answer?" Fang Yan shook his head lightly and said, "I'm still looking. If there's a need, you're willing to help?" "I mean, if there's a need for you," Bailey Lu said. Fang Yan squinted his eyes and smiled. He said, "Of course there's a need." Bailey Lu looked at Fang Yan with a puzzled expression. Fang Yan raised the bowl of liquor in his hand and said, "To the old drunkard." Bailey Lu did not dare to call Mo Qingdi an old drunkard like Fang Yan. Although Mo Qingdi was not there, he still said respectfully, "To Elder Mo." Fang Yan drank all the xiaodao in the bowl in one gulp. Gasping for breath, he said, "Why did you come back this time?" "To marry Yi Ro," Bailey Lu said. Chapter 722. And then? Fang Yan asked. His voice blended with the falling raindrops and was masked by the whistling wind, making it almost impossible to hear him clearly. However, Bailey Lu heard it clearly. He could even hear the emotion contained in the word. And then? He was angry, and he cared a lot about it, but he pretended to not care. And then? Probably the same as Yi Fengxing? The elders of the family go to the Yi family to propose marriage and give generous betrothal gifts. First, they choose a close date to drink a glass of engagement wine, and then choose an auspicious day to complete the wedding. Enter the bridal chamber, give birth to a child. Isn't that the process of marriage? After everything is done, the two people have to spend the rest of their lives together. "I won't do anything to you." Fang Yan took a big gulp of wine and said with a smile, "Yi Ro will kill you." "Yes." Bailey Lu drank up the shadaozi in one breath, wiped the wine stain on the corner of his mouth, and said, "I'll drink another bowl. I can't drink such strong shadaozi outside. And I can't drink the shadaozi brewed by Senior Mo outside." Fang Yan ignored him. He ran to the wine jar in the room and took out another big bowl. He sat back on the small stool under the eaves and continued the topic. He looked at Fang Yan and said, "Yi Ro will kill me. I know Yi Ro will kill me, and they also know Yi Ro will kill me. But why do they still want me to marry Yi Ro?" Fang Yan looked at Bailey Lu with bright eyes and a little smile. He asked, "Do you like Yi Ro?" "I asked them why do they still want me to marry Yi Ro." Bailey Lu said angrily, "I asked first, do you like Yi Ro?" Fang Yan asked again, and the smile on his face began to widen. Bailey Lu thought for a moment and said, "If you have to find a marriage partner, there is nothing wrong with Yi Ro." "Well, I admit that I like Yi Ro. You also know that among our group of friends, there aren't many who don't like her. At that time, we were a group of men hunting birds in the mountains and fishing in the water, but Yi Ro never played with us. Although we said she was unsociable and didn't like to play with such a girl, we actually hoped that she could be with us. If she inadvertently glanced at us, everyone's heart would pound violently, and their voices would become much louder, just like a group of little roosters that had been injected with hormones." Bailey Lu picked up the wine bowl and took a sip. He felt the strong aroma of the wine, but his eyes were fixed on the water droplets that continuously dripped from the eaves into the pool. The water droplets were like a thick transparent thread, creating small ripples in the small pool. If the water droplets were alive, would they merge with each other or be swallowed by the pool? Were their hearts filled with joy? At that time we were all very envious and jealous of you. We wanted to play with Yi Ro, but we didn't know what reason to get close to her. You are different. Because of the competition every year, you two were born to be enemies. When a group of us stands together, when she looks over, her gaze will most likely be on you. Although her gaze might not be kind, you can also go up and provoke her or even insult her, and then wait for her to retaliate. In fact, we are all envious of you." Fang Yan nodded, looked at Bailey Lu and said, "So you like Yi Ro, so you won't object to this marriage. Even if you object, you won't object so fiercely. Yi Ro has extraordinary skills, and she may become the youngest elite in the Tao of Heaven in Swallow Fort. The Yi family is now like the sun in the sky. If you two get married, the Bailey family will also benefit a lot. Not only the Bailey family, as long as the Yi family spreads the news that Yi Ro is looking for a man, the other families in Swallow Dock will probably rush to marry her. As you said, if you want to find a woman to marry, who doesn't want to marry Yi Ro?" After a pause, Fang Yan said, "Of course, it won't be easy for you to take advantage of this. The Yi family will never let Yi Ro go. So did they ask you to be their son-in-law?" Bailey Lu grinned and said, "We can do this, but you can't. I have an elder brother and a younger brother. I have 4 or 5 cousins, and more than a dozen brothers and sisters. Even if I, Bailey Lu, sacrifice for my family or for my beauty, it's not a big deal. For example, Li Xiaotian has an elder brother, Li Xiaolong. Li Xiaolong is so powerful that he can support the Li family. It's not a bad thing for Li Xiaotian to marry into the Yi family and be the peace ambassador between the two families. You don't consider my and Yi Ro's opinions. This business is really good. Fang Yan sighed and said. What business? You put it so bluntly. This is true love. Although Yi Ro doesn't necessarily love us, we love Yi Ro. Then, let's go back to my first question, Fang Yan said with a smile. Aren't you afraid that Yi Ro will kill you? What about you? Bailey Lu looked at Fang Yan with a bowl of wine in his hand and said, like you said, you won't do anything? Yi Ro is responsible for killing people, and I'm responsible for digging holes. I can't bear to let Yi Ro bear such a heavy workload alone. Look, I know it's like this. If I only consider Yi Ro's opinion, I think I can give it a try. He thought. I'm not worse than you, Fang Yan. If I make love to you, Yi Ro may fall in love with me in the future. But if I only consider your opinion, we're brothers. I've helped you. My family forced me to do this. You can't just kill me with a sword. But if I have to consider your and Yi Ro's opinion at the same time, I'm afraid no one dares to accept this marriage, right? The weight of you and Yi Ro together is no less than that of those rich and powerful families. You are a smart man, Fang Yan said as he looked at Bailey Lu with a bowl of wine in his hand. Come on, let me toast you. Because I didn't steal your woman. No. Fang Yan shook his head and said. Because you made the right choice. You should know that I will really kill people. I've already killed Bai Xiao. Bailey Lu clinked his bowl with Fang Yan's and said. Some people are not easy to kill. Then kill them slowly, Fang Yan said. Anyway, I'm not too busy now. Once upon a time, there was a mountain called Monkey Mountain. There was a Taoist temple on the mountain, and there were a group of old monks in the temple. The Taoist temple was located on the mountainside of Monkey Mountain, built against the cliff. Half of the Taoist temple was suspended in the air. From a distance, it looked like it was flying in the clouds. Because of the rain, the mountain was blurred and the fog was rolling. The entire Taoist temple was shrouded by the rain and the fog. The Taoist priests in the temple were doing their evening classes in the One Mind Temple. There were also a few old Taoist priests in the kitchen, preparing dinner for the Taoist temple. Such a tranquil and comfortable scene. Every day passed in this manner. In the past few decades, it was rarely broken by anything. However, today was not an ordinary day. On the cliff of the Taoist temple, a black figure was climbing along the cliff. His posture was calm and his speed was fast. He looked as if he was walking on flat ground. From the bottom to the top, he was like an agile old monkey or a soaring eagle. His body was almost flying toward the outer wall of the Taoist temple. The tips of his feet lightly touched the protruding but precipitous rocks. And then he stepped on a large rock even higher up. When his body reached the top of the void suspension temple, his body paused for a moment. He lowered his voice and looked around. Then his body jumped down like a bat and quietly entered the window of the void suspension temple. There was no one in the room, nor was there any sound. He could not even hear a person's breathing or pulse. This was something he had already inquired about when he came in. He did not stop and continued to climb until he reached the door of a locked room on the top floor. He pressed his palm on the golden lock, and his inner strength burst forth. With a slight ding, the copper lock automatically bounced open. He held the lock in his hand, pushed open the door and entered. The room was dark, but it was not a problem for the black-clothed man. He didn't even need a flashlight to walk around the house freely. For martial artists of their level, night vision was not a very impressive skill. There were rows of bookshelves in front of him, and there were all kinds of books and ancient books on them. The room was filled with a strong scholarly atmosphere, but there was no smell of decay. Instead, there was a faint fragrance. The black-clothed man reached out and quickly searched through the books, looking for a place where the treasure could be hidden. In a very inconspicuous small house in the Taoist temple, a young Taoist was sitting on a chair, drowsily sleeping. Perhaps he was startled by the thunder outside, But he suddenly opened his eyes and wiped the saliva from the corner of his mouth. Looking at the surveillance image on the TV screen in front of him, and the figure busy in the dark room, the young Taoist became excited and ran towards the one-hearted sect view next door. Lowering his voice he shouted, "Master, Master! Grandmaster! Someone's here to steal the Tai Chi painting again! Someone's here to steal the Tai Chi painting again!" Chapter 723. The sky was dark and misty, and the rain was hazy. The old parasol tree in the courtyard was washed clean by the rain, and the large leaves of the parasol tree showed the green color of their youth, like green jadeite leaves that had just bloomed. There was an open vat under the Chinese parasol tree. The water in the broken vat was already full, and the new water flowed out, flowing into the stream next to the courtyard. Tiny ripples appeared on the surface of the water, because of the newly fallen raindrops. Occasionally, large ripples would appear, stirring up the water in the vat, as if there was an invisible monster hiding at the bottom of the vat. However, it didn't show its head, and there was no way to see its true appearance. Splash! A big red fish emerged from the water, opening its mouth and spitting out bubbles, catching the rootless water falling from the sky. It seemed as if something had bitten its tail, and then it suddenly dove into the bottom of the pond. Splash! Water splashed everywhere, and the water swayed even more violently. With the heart of the water as the center, ripples began to spin in the vat. The black shadow was still searching in the room, flipping through the precious ancient books, and then throwing them to the side. His movements were extremely fast, but he almost didn't make any sound. The room was still pitch black, and other than the flickering light from his pupils, it was difficult to see any other light. Swoosh! A cool breeze blew toward his back. If it was someone else, they would just think that there was a breeze blowing, and their back was slightly cold. However, for the black-robed man, even the slightest movement in the surrounding dozens of feet could not escape his perception. He didn't make any movements, but his body actually disappeared from where he stood. Crack! Countless fine threads of the horsetail whisk slapped the bookshelf, and the bookshelf was cut into countless pieces. That wasn't a natural wind, but a breeze caused by the attack of the horsetail whisk. After missing its attack, the horsetail whisk flicked, and it once again chased after the black-robed man not far away. This time, the direction of the horsetail whisk's attack was that pair of bright eyes. In this dark space, the pair of eyes were a little too bright. Swoosh! There was another faint breeze. The person holding the horsetail whisk leaped up, and his Taoist robe opened, but there was no sound. His appearance, his attack, and his attack. All of them had not made a single sound. He didn't even speak. Even his breathing was so soft that it couldn't be heard. This person was using the Taoist turtle breathing technique. His internal organs were like a turtle in a dormant state, but his body still maintained a powerful offensive ability. *Pa*. The black-clothed man's body disappeared, and the horsetail whisk struck the bookshelf again. The bookshelf could not withstand such gravity, and with a crack, a wooden board fell off. Then the entire bookshelf began to collapse, making a crashing sound. What was different was that this time, the direction in which the man in black disappeared was not to dodge or retreat. Instead, he took the initiative to greet the horsetail whisk. "Evil creature, you're courting death." The middle-aged Taoist priest was infuriated by the black-clothed man's arrogant and conceited behavior. He bellowed and suddenly withdrew his horsetail whisk. Then he swung it towards the black-clothed man's chest. This time, the horsetail whisks were no longer gathered together. Instead, they were scattered and flew towards the man in black like countless flying needles. The fine threads on the horsetail whisk actually broke free from the handle, and became a dense mass of deadly hidden weapons that covered all the important acupuncture points on the man's chest and face. "Ignorant child, don't scold me," the black-clothed man scolded, and at the same time he swung his palm out. If there were bystanders, they would definitely be amused by this scene. The black-clothed man came to steal someone's treasure, but after being caught red-handed, he did not want to let others scold him. This was truly tyrannical. What was even funnier was that he called a middle-aged Taoist priest an ignorant child. Whose child would grow up so quickly? This humble Taoist is Fragrant Flower Pavilion's book reader, Qing Xian. Who are you? The Taoist sect had a saying, 3 secrets and 7 mysteries. The 3 secrets were the 3 top experts of the Ji generation, while the 7 mysteries were the heroes of the Xian generation. The 3 secrets and 7 mysteries each had their own strengths, and they were the backbone of the Taoist sect. 3 secrets and 7 mysteries. Let's see if you're fishing for fame. As the black-clothed man spoke, the wind from his large palm swept away the sword-like hard needles. Dong dong dong. The needles pierced into the wall or bookshelf, making dull sounds. Qing Xian was shocked. It was very common to use the strength of one's palm to deflect hidden weapons. However, what he swung out were countless hairs of the horsetail whisk, and he used the powerful technique of sweeping away an army of 1,000. Receiving 1 hidden weapon was not considered a skill, and receiving 3 to 5 hidden weapons was understandable. However, how much strength did one need to slap out thousands of hairs at the same time? Who was this person? How did he have such strength? While Qing Xian was shocked, he already held the horsetail whisk and moved towards the black-clothed man. After the black-clothed man swatted away the hairs, his momentum did not decrease. He ignored the sharp handle in Qing Xian's hand, and his palm landed on Qing Xian's chest. Puff! Qing Xian immediately spat out a mouthful of blood, and his body flew backwards. Clang! His body smashed heavily onto a row of bookshelves, causing them to topple over. This triggered a domino effect, and the bookshelves were also smashed down. Dust flew everywhere in the room, and books fell to the ground, making a hissing sound. Puff! After Qing Xian's body fell to the ground, he spat out another mouthful of blood. He held his chest and asked, "Who are you?" Actually, when he asked this question, the answer was already very clear. Because in the entire Wuxia, there were very few people who could send him flying with 1 palm. The black-clothed man did not answer Qing Xian's question. Instead, he walked towards Qing Xian step by step, and asked in a low voice, "Where is the Tai Chi painting?" The black-clothed man's theft had been discovered, and he had caused such a huge commotion. Not only did he not escape immediately, but he also continued to ask about the treasure. "You are also here for the Tai Chi painting. Who are you? Where is the Tai Chi painting?" The black-clothed man had already walked in front of Qing Xian, and he looked down at him. "Don't waste time. If I attack again, you will already be dead. You should have been killed by me just now. How can Qing Xian? How can I be threatened by evil people?" Qing Xian held his chest and laughed coldly. He wanted to stand up, but his internal organs were seriously injured, and he could not move. "It's just death. I am a monk. Why would I care about this?" "Then you can go and die," the black-clothed man said expressionlessly. As he spoke, he lifted his foot and was about to step down. "Immeasurable heavenly venerate." An old voice came through the window. The voice was loud and clear, like thunder. It was so loud that it made one's eardrums buzz. "Mr. Black Dragon, you have the time to come to Immeasurable Temple as a guest. Why are you doing such a secretive thing? Why are you fighting with a junior?" The black-clothed man glanced at Qing Xian, and knew that he could not step down anymore. The leader of the group had stood up, but he still attacked an injured junior. It was really embarrassing. "Old Taoist Taichung, you are not dead yet," the black-clothed man shouted outside. The moment he spoke, the buzzing in his ears immediately disappeared. Using sound to attack the enemy, and using sound to subdue the enemy was the principle of imbuing strength into one's voice. For experts of their level, there was nothing in the world that could not injure or subdue the enemy. Who cares about life and death? The old voice said with a smile. "Since Mr. Black Dragon is here, would you like to come out and meet me?" "Why not?" the black-clothed man said aloud. He slapped the tightly locked window of the house with his palm. The window made of rosewood shattered into sawdust and scattered in all directions. The black-clothed man's feet did not move. He did not need any leverage, but he had already flown out of the window. Cha! His feet landed on a bluestone in the courtyard. The bluestone did not move at all. Not even the rainwater beneath his feet was disturbed. Black clothes and a black hat. His entire body was shrouded in darkness. His face could not be seen clearly. Even his figure could not be seen clearly. He stood there motionless, but his body seemed to be wrapped in a layer of gauze, wrapped in a layer of fog. It was illusory and real, and one could never find his true body. In the courtyard, dozens of Taoist priests gathered around. There were old Taoist priests with white beards, and there were also some young and naive Taoist priests. They looked at the man in black who was hiding in the wind and rain with a common enemy. There was no joy nor sorrow, only some anger spreading in their hearts. They did not provoke anyone, but there was always someone who came to their house to steal things and hurt their loved ones. This kind of thing would not feel good to anyone. Were monks not human? However, they did not act rashly, because the person standing in the black shadow was called the Black Dragon, the most elusive and most unfathomable black dragon, one of the 3 divine dragons of Wuxia. Even though they were experienced and knowledgeable, they had to say, the guest who came to visit today was also a legendary figure. In the middle of the crowd of Taoist priests stood an old man in a light-colored Taoist robe. The old man's hair and beard were all black, and there were not many wrinkles on his face. However, his voice was extremely old, like an old monster that had lived for hundreds of years. The old man straightened his back and stood in the middle of the crowd. He looked at the black-clothed divine dragon and said, "Which Tai Chi diagram do you want?" "Treasures of heaven and earth belong to virtuous people," the black dragon said calmly. Even though he was surrounded by so many people, he was not afraid at all. "You have no use for it. I will take it myself." "If you can't take it, doesn't that prove that you are a person without virtue?" Taoist Taichung joked. "I haven't taken it yet." "How do you know I can't take it?" "I'm afraid you can't take it," Taichung said with great certainty. "The world is so big. If I want to leave, who can stop me? If I want to come, who can stop me?" The black-robed man said with a sonorous voice. Chapter 724. The world is so big. If I want to leave, who can stop me? If I want to come, who can stop me? The black-clothed man's voice was powerful, and it sounded like he was full of confidence when he said this. And he stood there with his head held high, fearless of the wind and rain, looking like a majestic idiot. "Such heavy rain. Can't you just stand under the eaves for a while?" It had to be said that some martial arts masters did things to show off, and it was still very objectionable. Did standing in the courtyard with an umbrella make people think that you're not a black dragon or a peerless master? Not friendly at all. Black dragon, don't be presumptuous. My immeasurable temple is the orthodox Taoism. How dare you come here and behave atrociously? Are you trying to bully my immeasurable temple? Let me meet him. Immeasurable temple had always been known as the orthodox Taoism, the foundation of Taoism, and the place where many strong masters came from. Sect Master Taichung, Junior Brother Taisu, and Taiying, the 3 great celestial masters had already entered the heavenly Tao realm, and their martial arts had reached perfection. Because these people were old and had high status, they were dedicated to Taoism, and almost did not get involved in worldly affairs. Therefore, the outside world was familiar with the 3 secrets and 7 mysteries. Feng Yan's Taoist master Tianjizi was one of the 3 secrets, and he was likely to take over the Taoism palm seal. Tao addict Song Zanyang was about the same age as Tianjizi, but he had a very high seniority, and was the last disciple of the previous Taoism sect master. Fuxing Taisu was in seclusion and did not come out for several years, and Taiying was in the Monkey Mountains cave of no solution. Only Taichung could suppress the black dragon. Taichung did not say anything, but the descendants of Taoism around him had already started to retaliate. Although they were monks, they had profound cultivation and were proud and arrogant. Today they were bullied by the black dragon, and they were already sulking. Now that they heard the black dragon's arrogant words, they naturally wanted to rush up and fight him for 300 rounds. The black dragon sneered and said, "The 3 secrets and 7 mysteries are well known in the outside world, and I think they should have some real skills. But I just met a guy in the library who called himself Qing Xian. I think he should be one of the 7 mysteries. In the end, he was slapped by me in 1 round. Although he has some backbone, what's the use? Didn't he still fall to the ground with a slap?" "Black dragon, how dare you bully junior apprentice brother Qing Xian? I'm Yu Xian, I'll fight you." Everyone, let's get rid of this old fellow. He's really going too far. Mr. Black Dragon is a guest from afar. Everyone, don't be rude, Taoist Taichung said. The old Taoist priest Taichung's prestige was extremely high. As soon as he opened his mouth to speak, there was not the slightest bit of noise in the courtyard. Taoist Taichung looked at the Black Dragon and said, "If you are a friendly guest, we will naturally welcome you with tea. But if you are a malicious guest who wants to steal our treasures, our immeasurable monastery can only sweep you out. Does Mr. Black Dragon want to leave on your own? Or do you want us to drive you away?" It had to be said that the Black Dragon did have the ability to act tough. If an ordinary person were to stand in the rain, they would have long been drenched. How could a drowned rat have any prestige to speak of? The Black Dragon was different. He had been standing in the rain for a long time, and the rain today was indeed very heavy. The rain was boundless, but not a single drop fell on Black Dragon's clothes. Even now his body remained dry and clean. He did not move at all, but the black robe on his body fluttered, and a rain of arrows flew out in all directions of the courtyard. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Countless raindrops turned into countless rain arrows, and countless rain arrows flew towards the surrounding Taoist priests. The young Taoist priests retreated nervously. The middle-aged Taoist priest and the old Taoist priest came forward and waved their sleeves. With a flick of their horsetail whisks, they sent the rain arrows flying. "This is to teach you a lesson for not being polite," the Black Dragon said in a gloomy voice. The Black Dragon did not intend to use this move to injure anyone. He only wanted to create some chaos in the crowd. Taichung and a few older Taoist priests stood there expressionlessly. When the rain arrows flew in front of them, they automatically bounced off, as though they had encountered an invisible wall. Even the young Taoist priests standing behind them would not be harmed in any way. After the Black Dragon was done teaching the young one a lesson, his gaze shifted to the old one. He looked at the old Taoist priest Taichung and said, "Taichung, I'm here for the Taiji painting. Give me the Taiji painting, and I will naturally leave. The Taiji painting already has a successor. It will be sent out on a chosen day. Naturally, I can't give it to you," said the old Taoist priest Taichung indifferently. "Who can obtain this Taiji painting?" asked the Black Dragon in surprise. "Naturally, it's a fated person." "A fated person?" the Black Dragon sneered. "You monks and Taoist priests just like to play tricks. What do you mean by fated people? Those who have a close relationship with you are fated people? It's fine if those vulgar people in the outside world like to play tricks behind the scenes, but even you monks and Taoist priests like to play such tricks. Don't you have any shame? You keep saying that you believe in gods, but if there really is a god, the first thing they will punish would be believers like you who are duplicitous and use their name to cheat." Heavenly Lord of the Immeasurable, Taichung chanted and said, "It looks like this old Taoist will have to do something today. To be able to fight with old Taoist Taichung, it's not a wasted trip." As the Black Dragon spoke, his body vanished into thin air. When he appeared again, he had already leaped in front of the old Taoist priest Taichung, appearing and disappearing like a ghost. It was not the Black Dragon's usual movements, but the ultimate technique that the Black Dragon was currently using. This ultimate technique was called appearing and disappearing like a ghost. Apart from a very small number of experts in the world, very few people could track his movements. Just like his nickname Black Dragon, he was hidden in the darkness, and all one could see was nothingness. The Black Dragon was currently in a state of nothingness, and his body had turned into a blurry figure. It was just like the name of a very popular television series a few years ago, like Fog, Rain, and Wind. He struck out with his palm, and the palm that he struck out also turned illusory. It was not a shadow, but a palm formation formed by countless palm shadows. With just a light palm strike, the Black Dragon locked onto the old Taoist priest Taichung's chi activity. Like an invisible electric net, it trapped his hands, his feet, and every part of his body that could attack. When experts exchanged blows, the first thing they competed on was chi activity. The Black Dragon's chi activity was powerful, and he had struck first. It looked like he had already gained the upper hand. Just as the illusory palm prints were about to strike the old Taoist priest Taichung's chest, The old Taoist priest's body disappeared. No, he did not disappear. He just suddenly disappeared right under people's noses, and then reappeared even more suddenly. It was as if he had used the invisibility technique once, and then instantly lost its effect. Then, Black Dragon's charging body was sent flying backwards. Whoosh! His black robe fluttered in the wind. Crack! The Black Dragon's feet stood on the large vat in the courtyard, and he broke a small corner of the vat. Then he looked in Taichung's direction in surprise. Final radiance of the setting sun. Rebirth after death. The Black Dragon chuckled. Interesting. In the large vat behind him, two big fish, one black and one white, poked their heads out. The wedding date for Yi Fengxing and Bailey Qingzhu had been roughly set. Because they already had a child in their wombs, many things had to be simplified and done quickly. They had to get married within a month. After all, they could not let the girl's belly grow big, or the news spread before they got married. If that happened, it would not look good on both sides. Fang Yan was originally going to return to Huaqing in the next few days. There were still a lot of things to take care of there, but now it was very difficult for him to leave. On one hand, he had promised Zhang Jianjun that he would complete a mission for the country. He was duty-bound to help the country. Moreover, Swallow Dock had been doing this all these years. Some obtained merit, and some were buried in the earth. But no one had ever retreated. In addition, he wanted to wait until his good brother Yi Fengxing got married before returning. Yi Fengxing was the first to get married among his group of brothers, and he might be the first to become a father. Of course, he could not rule out the possibility that some of these fellows had illegitimate children that could already be used as soy sauce. Yi Fengxing spread the news that Zhu Zidong, who was far away in the North Sea, was also said to be coming back. At that time, his group of brothers could have a good reunion. Most importantly, Fang Yan could not bear to go back. During the days he was in Swallow Dock, he accompanied his mother to the mausoleum in the back mountain every morning to sweep his father's grave. He would pour a cup of wine for him, light a stick of incense, and then help his mother tidy up her vegetable garden. In the afternoon, he would chat with his grandfather and push his wheelchair and the Vajra eagle around Shihizi. The rest of the time was used to accompany Yi Ro, walking with her, eating with her, watching the sunrise with her, and watching the sunset with her. Because Yi Ro was seriously injured while climbing the heavens path, she still could not practice martial arts. Therefore, Fang Yan took her around all day, and the Yi family did not say anything. Yi Dawen seemed to have forgotten the unpleasant conversation with his daughter, and turned a deaf ear to her disobedient behavior. It was as if it had never happened. Yi Ro and Yi Ro made a bet because of Fang Yan. Although Yi Ro won the bet, she still promised to take a day to go shopping with Yi Ro, although she did not know what to do. Hearing that Yi Ro and Yi Ro were going shopping in Yanjing City, Fang Yan volunteered to take the responsibility of driving them. Now he followed behind the two women, carrying big and small bags in his hands, but what he got was all kinds of dissatisfaction from Yi Ro. "Sister, we are going shopping. Why do we need to bring a third wheel? I was going to take you to see a handsome guy." Yi Ro complained, but she pulled Yi Ro into one brand store after another to try on clothes and shoes. "You can also go to see handsome guys now. After seeing them, you will find that a man with inner qualities like me is really rare," Fang Yan said with a smile, and kept making eyes at Yi Ro along the way. When he was in Swallow Dock, he always had the feeling that he was being watched. He couldn't do anything intimate with Yi Ro. After coming out, the sky was high and the sea was wide, and it was easy to do something overboard. Fang Yan was even thinking of not going back tonight. He was going to find a hotel and get a room. But what about Yi Ro? This third wheel is really annoying. Chapter 725. Fang Yan and Yezi disliked each other. They both thought the other was a third party. Yezi thought it was not easy for her to ask her sister Yi Ro out to go shopping. She wanted to introduce her to her life and social circle, so that she would not be so introverted in the future. However, why did a man like Fang Yan follow them? Fang Yan's idea was even simpler. If they didn't go back to Swallow Dock at night, How many rooms should they get in the hotel? If they got 1 room, neither Yezi nor Yiro would agree. If they got 2 rooms, would he sleep with Yiro or Yezi? In this hostile atmosphere, Yi took Yiro's hand and walked into a world-famous luxury flagship store. There were bodyguards at the door and more than a dozen people were waiting in line at the door. Yezi seemed to be used to this kind of thing. She took Yiro and stood in line at the back of the crowd. Fang Yan walked behind them with big and small bags and whispered to Yiro, "Shall we go to another store? There are too many people in this store, and we need to wait in line." Idiot. Yezi rolled her eyes and sneered. This is to make it easier for distinguished guests to shop, so they limit the number of people entering the store at a time. If this kind of brand store is as crowded as a super mall, who would want to go in? This is hunger marketing, Fang Yan said with a smile. You should have learned this knowledge in college, right? They let a group of people stand in line at the door to tell others to come quickly. If you don't come soon, there will be no more customers. This kind of solicitation is so childish and so many people are fooled. I really don't understand. You are childish. The things in this store are all limited products. If you don't buy them, they will be bought by others. You won't understand. When Fang Yan was about to refute, he saw a beautiful woman in a red dress walking towards them with a middle-aged man. She said in a sweet voice, "Honey, this is the place. I want that new bag. Can you buy it for me?" The middle-aged man seemed to dote on his little lover. He put his arm around her shoulder and said with a smile, "Okay, if you want it, we will buy it." "Thank you, husband." The woman pounced on him and kissed him hard on the face in front of everyone in the mall. When the woman came to the door, she saw Yi, who was waiting in line at the door. She exclaimed and said, "Hey, isn't this Yi Xinchen? Yi Xinchen, why are you here?" Yi glanced at the woman coldly and said, "What do you have to do with me eating? There's no food here." The woman giggled and hugged the middle-aged man next to her. "Honey, this is my classmate Yi Xinchen. Her favorite brands are Nike and Adidas Shamrock. I've never seen her here before." Yi squinted at her college classmate, Liemo, and sneered. "What's wrong with me liking Nike and Clover? At least I bought it with my own money. It's refreshing and comfortable to wear. Unlike some people who are like blood-sucking maggots. Who knows what kind of shameful things they would do for a bag." Fang Yan knew the background of the Yi family. With Yi Daoling's status as the economic lifeline of the country at this time, wouldn't it be easy for his baby daughter to buy any brand of bag? Besides, the Yi family also had their own business. Their business was very big. Although they were not as rich as Qin Yitian, it was not too difficult to buy this brand store or the Friendship Mall where they were standing now. Because of Yi Daoling's sensitive identity, Yi would not wear clothes that were too ostentatious to bring trouble to her father. Besides, although Yi did not learn martial arts, she also had the inheritance of a martial arts family. Her usual clothes were mainly casual and sportswear like Nike Clover. Occasionally, she would extravagantly buy a branded bag and an expensive skirt. Unexpectedly, Ye's low-key had also become the point of attack between the classmates. "Yi Xinchen, what are you talking about? Who is a blood-sucking maggot? You asked your parents for money. Aren't you a blood-sucking maggot? Okay. The middle-aged man patted Limo's shoulder and comforted her. "We are all classmates. Don't be angry." When the middle-aged man saw Ye's appearance, he had an instant feeling of amazement. When he saw Yiro, who was holding Ye's arm, he felt that this woman should only be in heaven. It was rare to see her on earth. He was a playboy. He had the calmness of a middle-aged man, but he still felt that his heart was beating fiercely. The man took the initiative to reach out to Yi and said amiably, "Yi Xinchen, hello, I am Hu Jinyu. Do you like this brand too? Liemo also likes this brand of bags and clothes. I don't know how many I have bought for her. You and Liemo are classmates. It is rare for us to meet today. Do you want to go shopping together? This has nothing to do with vanity. Girls still need a few beautiful clothes and a branded bag to keep up appearances. Don't you think so?" Hu Jinyu had already revealed his wealth in a few words, and he also revealed the information that he was interested in Yi. As for whether they would accept his kindness or not, it would depend on whether they were tempted by his bait. He had seen too many women like this. On the surface, They were as cold as icebergs or looked like they were not moved by money, but in private, they would take the initiative to leave their phone numbers, waiting for a more fierce attack. Yi was not willing to shake hands with Hu Jinyu at all. She stared at him coldly and said impatiently, I don't know you. Yi Xinchen, you didn't know me before, but you will know me in the future. You see, even if we met before, I didn't know your name, right? I said I don't know you and I don't want to know you. For Yi, such a man was really not appetizing at all. Not to mention the outstanding young people working around her father. Even some pursuers in the school were thousands of times better than him. Although she liked to keep a low profile, her father was in such a prominent position. How could she hide it from some people? At least the sons and daughters of some of the heads in the state ministries and commissions were aware of her identity. She never grouped with others, but those people still intentionally or unintentionally pulled her into such a circle. If you can, don't disturb my sister and me anymore. Okay? Hu Jianyu's face became gloomy, and he said sarcastically, Little girl, you have quite a character. I hope you can always have such a character. Li Mo originally wanted to show off that she had a rich godfather. But she felt a sense of crisis from Hu Jianyu's attitude towards Yi Xinchen. Only then did she realize what a stupid thing she had done. She hugged Hu Jianyu's shoulder tighter, smiled sweetly and said, Honey, my classmate is not very good at talking. Don't lower yourself to her level. Let's go. Don't let these small people affect our mood. Let's go in and see the bags. Let them continue to line up. Li Mo showed her VIP card, and the bodyguard at the door immediately pulled the rope and let her go. This made some people who were still lining up at the door a little dissatisfied, but they soon calmed down. Such behavior was most acceptable to the rich. They didn't think it was a privilege, but they regretted that their wealth hadn't reached such a level. She's sick. Yezi cursed in a low voice. This woman usually has princess syndrome. She commands people and scolds them all day long. Seeing that I have a good relationship with my classmates, she dislikes me everywhere. Several times she said in front of everyone that I am simple. I just like simple. What's wrong with that? Who wants to dress like a lady like her? Fang Yan tried to hold back his laughter. He didn't expect that Yezi would also be bullied. Fang Yan was very satisfied to see such a good show while waiting in line. Anyway, the person they bullied wasn't Yi Ro. Of course, no one dared to bully Yi Ro. Yi Ro held her hand and said, If you kill a fly, will you keep that fly in your heart? Of course not. Yezi said proudly. I don't care about her. Anyway, I'm very angry. After all the people in front of them had gone in, it was Yezi's turn with Yi Ro and Fang Yan. Yezi had paid attention to the new models of this brand, so she went straight to the front counter. Li Mo was choosing bags. Seeing Yezi coming, she said to the salesgirl next to her, Give me that red one, that yellow one, and that white one. If you don't have the black one, forget it. Give me all the new models in this series. Okay, please wait a moment. The salesgirl said respectfully. In the face of their VIP card users, this kind of request must be met. Even if ordinary users had such requirements, they had to meet them. Yezi ran to the counter, pointed to a yellow bag and said, Give me that one. The salesgirl smiled apologetically and said, Miss, please wait a moment. This yellow bag has been chosen by that lady. Then take out the other samples for me to see. Miss, you know that this is a limited edition. How about you look at other styles first? When this lady finishes choosing, I'll bring them to you. Li Mo giggled and said to the salesgirl, You don't have to work for her. This bag is worth more than 100,000 yuan. How can she afford it? I just wanted to come and take a look to clear my name. Hu Jinyu looked at this scene with a smile on his face. He felt very happy in his heart. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.